As we get set to start our fourth of 8 first-round matchups, we look at the overall bracket to see who has made it into the second round already, who still is yet to play, and, well, who may face whom in the next round. And we see that in this bracket, in the bottom left-hand corner, Greg Shahade takes on IM Zatonskih in the matchup that will start very shortly. And the winner of that one plays the winner of Cursi up against Dean Ippolito. And Danya, as we take a look across the bracket here, I mean, anything that you know, now that we've had some matches under our belt, anything stick out to you?
Well, I'm looking here at my phone. I think the of course Kashlinska against Zilecki match was so absolutely fascinating. I have such a pleasant sort of aftertaste after that match. And I think what we've learned is that you cannot discount, the old reliable folks. Obviously, I'm looking forward to Danny Wrench actually jumping into the ring, not going to lie. But you cannot judge simply on the basis of age or on blitz rating. Experience is also super important. So what I'm going to say is just don't think that there's going to be any lopsided matches, because everyone here is capable of having an excellent match and having a close match, even if they're not the favorites on paper.
That's definitely true. And as we look at the format now, to remind everybody of how this happens, there's 75 minutes in the longest time control of 5 minute plus 1 second increment, followed by 45 minutes of 3 minute plus 1 second increment. And then finally we get the bullet for 25 minutes. And as we saw in Alina Kashlinskaya versus Krzysztof Zilecki, that came down to the wire. The very last bullet game decided the match because Alina was up by 1. So this thing has the opportunity to go to the very end and to, countdown. And speaking of countdown, we have just 1 minute left before this match begins. So I am really looking forward to it. Danya, I have to ask. It's my job to ask.
It is your job to ask. Do I have any predictions?
Yep.
Well, I hate it when you ask me because, I feel like I'm Stephen A. Smith in that regard. What I say, just do the opposite, and that's going to be the result of the match. Now, obviously, as everybody knows, Greg is definitely the favorite here. I think that he, across all time controls, he's definitely the favorite. He's the more experienced blitz player. He, to my knowledge, is the strongest blitz player. But Anna, very strong over the board blitz player. So much experience under her belt, so many U.S. championships, incredibly strong player in his own right. I still think that Greg's got the edge here. So I'm going to have to say that Anna will have a very tough task ahead of her, keeping this match close. But we never know, and that is the magic and the beauty of these matches. You never know.
That's definitely true. And what we do know, as we bring up the daily question, is who is the best trash talker in chess, and does it help or hurt their ability to win games? So Greg was already talking trash about Lawrence Trent, someone he's not even facing today, but he's just getting the party started on that front. And it's a fun question. I would love to hear the answers that people give. Get involved with #SpeedChess on Twitter. So I'm really looking forward to that. But more importantly, we have a match coming up, but also we have the FIDE Chess.com Online Nations Cup. There was a press release just published recently, and that's going to be super exciting. You'll have players from 4 different countries: Russia, United States, India, and China. There's a European team and a rest of the world team, and just many of the best players in the world will be taking part. It is 50 years since this matchup versus the rest of the world happened. And I know that Chess.com is super excited to bring that action to you from May 5th to May 10th.
Well, that's just fascinating. I don't physically remember the rest of the world matches, but those were very interesting events. I think they're best talked about in a Yasser way. It's like, yes, I remember the rest of the world matches. Yes. But for now, before the rest of the world matches, we have a match between Greg and Anna. I am so excited, Robert. After that last match, you just don't know what's going to happen. So let's jump in. It looks like they're going to start the games any second, and there they go.
All right.
Greg with the white pieces in the first game.
And Greg showed some real respect to Anna Zatonskih. I had noted that when thinking about this matchup. Anna's peak FIDE rating was 25-37. So she is the highest rated player historically in this field.
Wow, 25-37 you said.
Yes, and in some ways, very surprising that she never obtained the Grandmaster title. She has a win against Boris Gelfand to her name, where she beat him in the Isle of Man. I don't remember what year it was, but she did defeat him. And we have a French. So I'm going to give respect to the French just for now because it's Anna Zatonskih playing it, and I've had the pleasure of working with her for the U.S. Women's Olympic team. And we see this position here, Danya, where black is more advanced in the C and D pawns, but white is further developed, has the king safe castle kingside. And at some point, knight g5 is probably going to be an annoying shot that Anna will have to deal with.
Yes, and this tension with the pawn on d4, the pawn on c5, right? Constant presence of the possibility of d takes c5, another thing to deal with. Black's avoiding several things simultaneously. He can slip into an IQP, isolated queen's pawn position, where white has total domination over that critical d4 square. Or as you pointed out, Robert, bishop f5 and knight g5, very, very unpleasant threats down the e-file. Let me tell you, Anna is already facing some very concrete and rather serious difficulties because c takes d4 can also be met with knight b3. And, you know, black's going to be careful that her position doesn't simply collapse.
Yeah, and the time management is something that has plagued Anna throughout her over-the-board career. She has that Grishuk syndrome where she spends copious amounts of time and often in positions that may not require that. This position, on the other hand, is quite concrete. There are many different ideas that white has up his sleeve. So I understand why she's using time here, and she's a fantastic player in time trouble, but not the start you want for Anna Zatonskih because I believe in her match against Alexander Kostenyuk, she really struggled in the 5-minute portion. She split the 3-minute time segment, and then it was a one-sided affair in Kostenyuk's favor in the bullet. So I think in the longer time controls, that's where Anna needs to make her mark. She castles queenside. That was the first thing that came to my mind. I
like what she's, she's solving, of course, the problem with the e-file. Now, I can probably count on one hand the amount of times I've seen queenside castle in the Teresh. But with that being said, I mean, you know, it's not that easy for white to exploit, and white's king is also not that safe. Look at that bishop on the a7. Well, I was about to say on the a7 Jew and diagonal, but now Anna puts it on d6. White's king is also not out of the woods. Objectively, white's probably better here. Maybe after knight. Well, maybe I don't want to go h3 because he does go h3, but that creates a potential hook on the king side. Yeah, in the event of a potential pawn storm.
I knew exactly what you were going to say. I was highlighting the squares before you could even finish your thought. But Danya, you're absolutely right that at first glance, if you just threw me into this position, I'd be like, oh, I love white's position. You're playing against an IQP. But one of the benefits of castling queenside is your rook is already defending that pawn. Not that it really needs defense, but it helps play d5 to d4. It's a very common move when you have an IQP. It's just pushing it, even if it sacrifices it, because it opens up space for your pieces. And the rook on d8 is already in prime position. That it's actually not a sacrifice. So d4, if you try to take on d4, you actually lose your knight on d4 at the end because the bishop h2 check and rook takes d4. So you have to keep a move like d4 in your mind. It will restrict your opponent's pieces. And knight e4, similar idea, right? If you take on e4, you're not just winning a pawn because bishop h2 check once more, the rook on d8 in prime position to take advantage of the queen being on the d file.
Exactly. And even if you were winning a pawn, as you pointed out, Robert, you know, it's not only about the pawn count here. Largely, this position is all about who's got the piece activity, because in many ways, the square in front of the isolated pawn is oftentimes more important than the pawn itself.
Right.
Now, the time situation is just crazy. I mean, I think Greg has pre-strategized. He knows about Anna's time trouble woes, and he's decided consciously in critical moments to play maybe a little bit faster, to get that huge time advantage, to put that pressure on Anna. We see him play knight bd4, not more than 10 seconds per move. Do you think that is a conscious strategy, Robert, or is he sort of just going by intuition, you know, and making natural moves, or both?
Oh, I think he definitely knows that her weak point can be just over thinking, really. And right now you see it on the clock. He is up almost 3 minutes on the clock? It's
3 minutes, unbelievable, yeah.
And if I'm Anna, I throw bishop h2, check bishop f4. That's the idea coming into my head immediately. But
same here.
You have to consider, is there some kind of knight takes e6, a timely move that will just shatter black's structure completely? What do I mean by that? all right now, knight e6, fe6, bishop e4, de4. These double isolated pawns don't look so good, but the queen on c7, aiming at the c2 pawn, keeps the white queen on. So would love to go to g4, but then queen takes c2, and black starts gobbling up pawns while white tries to do the same. So it's a mixed bag, and it's an opportunity for both players in that kind of dynamic. And I do prefer white's position, that's for sure. And you don't actually have to take this bishop on e6. It's not doing so much just yet, but Anna might just retreat it. Next move, bishop to c8, get out the way. And she had to cover the b5 square first, so not to allow a knight b5 jump, which forked the queen and bishop on c7, d6 respectively, but also the pawn that was on a7. So, Danya, when you try to make an objective evaluation of this position, do you also think that white should be a little bit better here?
Absolutely. And I actually think taking on e4 as Greg is doing and maybe just going queen e2 makes some sense. Now, if I were playing the Blitz game personally, I'd still consider queen g4, maybe give up c2 and b2 and then go rook b1, but I don't want to involve everyone in my own completely unobjective playing style. Yeah. So Greg does play queen e2, and here's the thing. Those pawns on e4 and e6 are not going anywhere. White's going to play slowly. Rook a d1, c3, bring all the pieces in, and black may end up just losing the pawn on e4 once white moves the bishop away from e3.
Yep. Bishop d4, for instance, so immediately threatens the pawn. And Danya, I think that black's best practical chance is to start trading some pieces, get into a rook endgame, or a queenless two rooks endgame, something like that, down bishop one pawn. Play bishop f4. Maybe throw bishop h2 check first. I'm not entirely sure. I like pushing the king to the corner. She goes queen a5 to try to get queen e5, and I don't think Greg's going to be so accommodating, because bishop d4 here says, hey, I know you can play e5 to kick my bishop back, but now your bishop on d6 looks pretty useless over here.
Yep, and that is, some people might look at that as, oh, white's wasting time. He's repeating moves, but pawns do not go backwards, and that pawn on e5 is going to be another weakness. Now, Greg allows queen e5. I guess he's just saying he's going to play g3, but then black can try to maybe stick a rook on f3. Oh, but that's nice. Queen takes f3 and bishop a7 check, Robert. Look at that.
Look at your tactics.
And
nice.
The pin.
Bishop a7 check, which doesn't even work because I go king c8 and rook e5, right. Bishop e5. We trade everything here.
Don't make me
Sorry, man.
Try to find a new commentator. I hate that you're good. Man.
Hey, you set me up. You came up with a good idea.
That's
bishop
right.
b6 now has to just be great. I mean, after bishop b6 is bishop c7. Wow, maybe you're not just dead yet. I thought bishop b6 would force a rook d7 move, and then you're all sorts of pinned. But if you can retreat with bishop to c7, that's a trade that can benefit black. It's more pieces come off.
I mean, somehow, black has to play Russian-style defense, try to trade some pieces. Maybe, I think white still big advantage. But advantage. I don't even know who that's just that's the generic Russian GM. But Anna with 22 seconds, I don't know how she does it. And I have seen her play in the acutest of time pressures at US championships. It is a sight to be seen. She is very, very good. Much like Grishuk, I mean, that is a talent separate from playing Blitz, because when I get into such time pressure, I get so nervous. I can't make a move in 5 seconds, much less a good one.
Right. And she's finding all the right moves. And in fact, Greg's time advantage is still tremendous, but he has been using a lot of time in the last series of moves. And look, bishop c5. I'm not saying that's a bad move, but I don't think he really intended to draw her bishop back and then bishop to c5. He's
losing the thread a little. Rook d8, for example. And as you mentioned, Robert, trading pieces, I think, black's recovering.
And this is the best possible trade for Anna, because she took an a2 pawn and is giving up one of her double isolated pawns. Double isolated pawns are so bad because they can't protect each other. And a pawn's best friend is another pawn. Look at this pawn on c3, protected by a pawn on b2. Same with the pawn on a6. So for those of you who are less familiar with some of the intricacies of the game of chess, you always want to have a pawn protected by another pawn. It's generally speaking an optimal strategy. And right now, Anna took an a2 pawn. She's giving up e4 at some moment. Greg doesn't even take it. Bishop f6. Trade pieces.
Queen b1, queen d3 even is...
Oh, yeah. I like that.
But now queen takes c4. I would bank on actually an attack. Queen 8, queen e4, queen b2, queen e6. And all of a sudden, bishop b5 becomes a threat. Black's got to be careful. Queen e6, though, there might be... And there's no bishop c7 due to queen e8, and it's a mate.
Right. So you need to maybe throw queen c1, queen f4.
Yes, but then g3...
And you can't... Your queen actually struggles to really get back into a...
Yes. So because of the pinning idea with bishop e5.
Right. So queen f8 or something, but then bishop e5, king a7. You're barely holding on. Or bishop e5, there's
Queen
bishop
c8
c7.
though.
There's bishop c7 here. Nice
Yes.
move. Okay, I think the worst is...
Okay, I actually forgot about that pawn, to be honest. But Black's got to start pushing her a pawn.
Right.
ASAP.
That is her compensation. Is a5, a4, a3. At some point, you just got to get that pawn rolling. Maybe right now is the time.
Yeah. King g2 and h4 maybe for white. Just practically pushing his own pawn. What does
a5.
white do?
Queen c5 is his plan, but that doesn't even... Yep, b6.
Man, you can just see the quality of play and time pressure is insane.
It is. And the thing is, the g5 pawn is less important. It's the quality of your pawns and the
Queen
quantity.
e4.
Queen e4 is nice. Picking up the a pawn, that's it. Once you get that a pawn, it's over.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just...
No, you're right to point that out. And Anna, unfortunately for her, is going to lose this one. But it really goes to show that she was doing an amazing job of fending Greg off, but you just can't do it when you have mere seconds to your opponent's minute and a half. So I think this is a great example that Anna can learn from, in that she didn't get the best position out of the opening. She spent a lot of time, but she showed that she is a tenacious defender. And if she has more time, or the time disadvantage isn't so great, she will be able to compete with Greg in this match.
Yeah, absolutely. And wow, I mean, the thing is, when I get down that low, I start to pray utter prayers to my internet service provider, because the millisecond of lag and you're lost. But yeah, I mean, the 3-4 minutes she spent in the opening, that's really what made the difference, because had she had maybe 10 more seconds even, she would have defended slightly more accurately, maybe not blundered at the end. And she's a very strong 1d4 player. She's very good in sort of these positional maneuvering types of situations. I think she feels more comfortable in them. So maybe this game, she'll be able to rebound in terms of time management. You can see her playing the opening moves very fast. We have one of the many theoretical variations in the Slav. I don't know much about this line. Maybe you know a little bit more, Robert.
It's like a French, right? Like if you look at this position, it's like a d takes e4 kind of Rubinstein French almost, and now c5. So the ideas in this position is very similar to a French. And if you're IM Zatonskih, you play the French as Black. You're like, wait a second, I know some of the pitfalls in Black's position. And she's playing extremely quickly here, as you pointed out, Danya. And one thing I'll note is Anna is by far the more active player over the board, right? So in terms of very serious preparation, IM Zatonskih has the upper hand against Greg Shahade. And Greg, with white pieces, was moving very quickly. He felt at home. She walked into a line he felt comfortable in. Right now, look at the time situation. When Greg Shahade is down 30 plus seconds, he's not feeling very good about his position, even though right now it's fine.
Yeah, and I should also point out both of these players have spouses who are also chess players. Of course, Greg, or no, what am I saying? Not Greg, that's his sister. I was thinking something was wrong with that statement, and I was like,
Danya?
No, that was bad. But
Danya, Queen H4 here. Uh-oh.
Anna, yeah. Should I put that aside for now, because Anna does have a husband who is, of course, a grandmaster and a very strong opening player, is the point I was trying to get across.
Daniel Friedman, great player. He's a grandmaster. Jen Shahade is Greg's sister. So that was an awkward mix-up. I'm sure that's going to get flipped and you're going to be made fun of. But this position, Danya, looks great for white. And the reason why is look at the development. All of white's minor pieces out, and not just developed, but attacking. Queen H4 threatens a mating attack immediately on H7. You throw it in play. Bishop takes F6, remove the guard of this H7 pawn because the bishop on C2 is staring down that way. So I'm not entirely sure what Anna's thinking about. Queen H4 feels...
Yeah, you got to do it. It either works or it doesn't, but like you have to... Wait, but what does Black do after... Because H6 bishop takes H6. Oh, and G6, as you said, Rook D1, right?
Yeah, Rook D1, and this knight is being lost here.
Whoa. I don't like that move at all. Wait, I don't even see a defense for Black after after Queen H4, to be honest.
Oh, Queen H4 looked amazing for white. And I think the best case scenario for Black is you just go down some material, but now you get into an end game where, okay, white may still be slightly better, but this isn't what you're looking for with your bishop on C2 staring at the king side. So Rook takes D4. She's trying to put her knight on E5. If bishop D7, just knight E5. So I still prefer white's position, but I think we're both pretty clear in the fact that that was a missed opportunity.
Absolutely. And, one could argue that white is still better here, but
I'm going to argue it. I'm going to argue it. White is
you're going to argue it? Well, I just like arguing with you, but in this specific instance, I can't argue that the black is equal. But if black develops his bishop to b7, plays rook a d8, slowly white's advantage starts to evaporate.
But I'll have some rook a d1. Like my rook might get to the 7th rank, so I don't know. I'm with you that if black can complete his development, then black should be okay. But it's easier said than done. Knight e5, bishop b7, knight d7 comes to mind, just as a way to exploit this knight on f6 being a bit pinned. And I can ruin your pawn structure a little bit and just play rook to d1 next.
Yeah, no, this is, and these endgames commonly arise in the Slav, and to an untrained eye, it might seem, like nothing much is going on. But again, White's piece placement is just so much superior, and that square on c6 that Anna is trying to access with her knight. And what I was going to say is, Anna, of course, is married to Grandmaster Daniel Fridman, who is awesome not only because his name is Daniel, but also is a very feared opening theoretician. A lot of her openings are shared by Daniel, and I know that he's got excellent opening preparation, so I'm sure that they had a training session probably before the match. And that definitely plays a role. You might argue that in Blitz openings don't matter, but they absolutely do. And we can see Anna getting her type of position here, even though it seems like she's missed an opportunity.
Yep. And knight d7, here it goes. So she's playing the line we anticipated, where in comes that knight. And okay, rook d8. So white can play rook a to d1 if she feels like just being chill, sitting on the position. The knight on f6 still pinned down here to the bishop on e7. And anytime you make a move like g5, there could be just an issue with the simple retreat bishop g3, because you don't want to allow white's rook to land on the 7th rank anyway.
Well, what if bishop c6 after bishop g3? And then knight e5, bishop e8, that's what he does.
Yep. So knight e5, you're going bishop e8. I guess that makes sense. Your bishop temporarily sits on a passive square, but everything's connected for black. All your pieces finally are coordinated relatively well. So perhaps should you take on f6 then and go to a pure 2 bishops endgame and try to play a 3-on-2 on the queen side? It doesn't look like.
It doesn't look like. I mean, maybe this is still better, but it's. I mean, in the context of queen h4, this is definitely, black will take this with both arms for sure. I mean, and again, Anna now much lower on time, and it's not as significant here because the position is more clearly defined. But Greg is, I'm sure, breathing a sigh of relief. I think queen h4 just won on the spot, actually. Now I keep thinking about that moment. It was a pivotal moment in this game, especially if Anna fails to win this endgame, and it looks increasingly like that might be the case.
Yeah, the bishop on d8 is perfectly placed to defend against any kind of bishop b8, bishop a7 sort of maneuver, attacking black's queenside pawns. And the way you win a position like this, this can be quite an instructive endgame, is you have an advantage as white on the queen side here, these 3 pawns. And black has a 4-on-3 if you cut the e-file in half. So the board in half at the e-file, excuse me. And so black wants to mobilize those pawns, but it's harder for black to achieve that. And what do you think about this bishop trade, Danya? The dark square bishop trade, is that good for black, or does that help white's chances?
I think it's a draw. F5, I think it's important to avoid the bishop trade for black.
Okay.
Bishop e4 here, probably. Okay, black gets his king to e5, but no, definitely white stands to gain from this, because it's much easier for her to create a pass pawn on the queen side than it is for black to create a pass on the king side. That's why commonly in these positions, and it also arises out of several other openings, the side of how do I phrase this? The majority that has less pawns.
Yep.
That side stands to gain more because it's simply easier to create a passer. With that being said, it's going to be very hard to crack black's defenses. Greg is definitely thinking about taking the bishop. I would be very skeptical about that. But
yeah,
maybe it draws.
Maybe,
Robert,
but
it
might also lead to a lost king and pawn game. So
it's not worth it, yeah.
King d4 immediately, because e5 check and go king d5. So king d4.
King d4 and then c5.
Yep. And there is that pass pawn we're springing free. And one of your points, if I'm reading between the lines, Danya, is that when you get this endgame, if you can force a pass pawn first, the black king will be forced to go directly over to the queen side. Then you use your pass pawn as a bit of a decoy. You force black's defenses in front of that pawn, and then the white king will run over to the king side, where it's black was the extra pawn, but the king activity will start attacking all those pawns, and that becomes a problem. Oh my gosh. So just take, you got to get A4, B4, A5.
A4, yeah, yep. And exactly, Robert. I mean, that is the absolute destructive power of an outside pass pawn. Not only is it a standalone force, but it can act as a decoy. And that is what makes, pass pawns in general are already a force to be reckoned with. An outside pass pawn is a humongous asset. And it's just got to be careful not to allow too much rapid activity on the other flank. For example, like A4, King D6, and Greg's going to try, I don't know what he's got to try to do to muddy the waters here. Maybe F5 and then quickly like Bishop C6 and G4. I don't know, but that doesn't really do much.
The good news for Greg is that Anna's king can't quite get in, right? A5, B5, C5, D5. If I just draw, red squares across his fifth rank, all of them are under black's control. So the king is more advanced for the time being. Oh, E5 is one of those really risky moves because
it creates more weaknesses.
King B5? Yes,
King
please.
C7, I guess.
And then A5. Just push that pawn.
Bishop D7.
And then I bring my king.
Even King A6 should be considered, but that's because usually the king can be extricated with the help of the bishop. Like, it's generally hard to trap a king in like that.
Well, the main concern I'm having, if I throw this on the board really quickly, okay, it doesn't happen, but I was going to say if the king does get caught there and then black goes a quick F5, E4, that could have been a problem for white, but the king actually would have been able to get back in time, it seemed like. So not something to be overly concerned about. Now the A pawn, exactly what we were talking about. This is going to be a decoy more than anything. Greg might sacrifice his bishop for this pawn immediately and try to run his king in. And that could be an attempt to make a draw. I don't believe in it, but that might be what he has to do. And he's spending his time here, and he plays bishop d7, not king c5, and a7's coming, and then the king comes. And
in addition, this move e5 is backfired by creating a complex of light squared weaknesses. So white can play g4 and bishop e4. And I think this is just over. So
king d6. You don't need this a6 pawn. Here comes king d6, king e6, and down. Ooh, okay, the bishop covers the rest of the pawn. I was like, king e7 is one of those moves that, it still works, but probably wasn't as accurate as you should be. And here, bishop e4, don't blunder that f3 pawn. I like that move, king g6. He didn't take the immediate pawn.
Look at the bishop takes that.
Oh my gosh. I was like, wait, what? Did I miss a tactic? No. Greg went for something that doesn't work. And I should point out, h8 doesn't match the color of the light square bishop, but white still has this g pawn in the position. So a fantastic display of endgame technique by IM Zatonskih, misplayed by Greg Shahade. So we have to not criticize, it's a little strong, but we have to call it out because that should not have been a loss for him. And for Anna, that's just what the doctor ordered. You now have a point on the scoreboard to even the matchup, and she's already moving more quickly in the opening in this game.
Absolutely. That lends her some confidence, and we can see, her positional understanding, her endgame play is probably superior to Greg's. And so her, what I'm concerned about on her behalf is her ability to get those types of positions with black. I think with the white pieces, Anna can channel the game into exactly, as we discussed, the types of positions she wants to get. With black against 1e4, it's much harder to do that. She's very solid in the French, but it's still not quite the same thing. And in fact, we have the exact same pawn structure through a different opening. And you mentioned that, Robert, that can happen out of the Rubinstein or the Terrace.
Yep. And Danya, I want to point out that, we've seen Anna show great technique, being precise, but she didn't play that queen h4 move, right? So that is a moment where you say, stylistically, these players are really at odds with each other. Greg is a more tactical, fierce, aggressive player. Anna is more kind of technique is the name of her game. She really likes eking out long victories. Actually, if you go through her games over the board, like if you go through her database of games, she has many really long, grinded out victories. And so these players stylistically really couldn't be more different. But I don't know who that favors, because in the 5-minute portion, if Anna has enough time, like she did in that last game, she really created enough problems for Greg and kept it close on the clock. And here with the black pieces, she is down 30 seconds, but she's in a position, at least the framework of a position, that she is mighty comfortable with.
Yes, and it's so solid. no natural disaster could shatter Black's defense. I mean, the only tactical, potential in White's position is some sacrifice on f7 with a knight or on e6 with a knight, but that's so far in the future, and that rarely happens. Black can slam a knight onto c5.
Yep.
And so we see Greg capturing an f6. This is going to be another sort of semi-positional battle. And yeah, I mean, we'll talk about this when Greg is Black, but I'm not sure. I don't know what Greg plays as his main opening, but the Slav is, quite possibly a choice that does play into Anna's hands when it comes to reaching her types of positions. And that's what this match is really going to be all about, as you say. Who's going to get their types of positions more?
Exactly. And right now we have what looks like the position we had in the last game, but the big difference is you don't have a bishop pair. It's bishop and knight versus bishop and knight. And to some of our viewers, them say, well, what is the difference? A knight versus bishop. But here, for instance, if you look at the dark squares, Black is actually seeming like the one who can take advantage of some of them, especially on the queen side. But the e5 square currently under White's control. However, the bishop on b7 is, in my opinion, stronger than the bishop on d3, because the bishop on d3 aiming at the h7 pawn, which is well protected, there's no real attack, whereas the bishop on b7 on the board's longest diagonal, at some moment you may consider just scooping off that knight on f3 and going for the dark squares. That is actually a very common idea. But Daniel, would you capture this knight, or would you maybe play like rook a to d8?
I am too in love with that bishop. I would play rook a d8. I briefly thought about knight g4, but it doesn't work for several reasons. Rook a d8 plays. I would consider going queen f4 here.
I just want to point out why knight g4 is a blunder, because knight g4, bishop h7 check,
yep,
king h7, knight g5, and I get to win your knight before you checkmate me on h2.
Precisely. And so Anna, she doubles on the d file.
I like it.
I just think that bishop on b7 can come back to haunt White in several different types of positions. Again, it's very important to point out, as you did, Robert, there's no bishop pair. White's pawn majority on the queen side is a lot less mobile than it was in the previous game, where White had the piece activity to supplement it and to make sure that the pawns could push forward. Here, Black's pieces are super coordinated. Anna brings her king toward the center. I don't think White is much worse here, but Black definitely is the one pressing here.
Completely agreed. Love that move, king f8. Many people would make him like g6 or h6, saying, oh, I need to free up the king on the back rank by pushing a pawn, because that's how we typically do it. But in an endgame, and once we see the rooks come off the board, we'll have a queen and two minor piece endgame. Your king's not going to be under attack on e7. So king f8, excellent move, displaying technique, playing that move quite quickly, and we're about leveling the clock. I know Greg has a time advantage, obviously, but at this point in time, with the position relatively simplified, I think that that's not a big deficit for on the clock. I like her position with Black. A5 is a common move to play. Yes, that makes the b6 square look a little bit more vulnerable, but A5 takes away White's opportunity to push pawns so easily on the queen side. So
I like it.
King e7 should be probably the first move played, and then maybe queen d6. And that's what I was talking about, these dark squares. If I can trade queens on d6 to get my king running very quickly, not only is my king threatening to go all the way to a3, but from the d6 square, I have e5, e4 type pushes. And I wouldn't play e5 with the queens on the board, I feel like. It just feels a little bit looser. But if I can play king e7 and then queen to d6, then I can play e5, and I feel very safe in that structure.
Yeah, well explained. And bishop takes f3, played by Anna, and I am honestly, to be honest, when a check, I'm really unsure about that, Robert. That something seems off about that. I mean, positionally, I understand the foundation of this move. The problem is it's very committal, and if Black's campaign of dark square domination doesn't work, I mean, I don't see how that was necessary. And it's easy for me here to sit here and say that, but something about this feels off. What do you think, Robert?
Well, some people aren't afraid of commitment, and Anna Zatonskih says, I'm going to scoop off that knight and go for the dark squares. And look at this bishop on c2. Danya, I love asking people about realistic dream squares. Where is this bishop on c2 going? Tell me.
Potentially bishop b4, bishop c6, bishop b5.
Okay, so trying to reroute the bishop this way, but I can always chop off that bishop if need be.
Yeah, but then it's a draw. I feel like Black was playing for a win.
Right.
And now
here comes that bishop.
Yeah, and look at that queen on a8, maybe queen d8 to try to disarm the activity of the queen, but still, I mean, I feel like black's just not going to have the right instruments to, assuming the queens stay on the board, to exploit, the weakness of white's dark squares on the
What instruments do you need? Do you need an oboe, a tuba? Like, tell me what I need here. What instrument?
That is a piano. That is so good. I don't want to spoil this by saying anything further, as I like to say in these situations.
Is going to F6, Danya. Don't underestimate king F6, pawn G5.
Yeah.
This pawn on F2, cemented on a dark square. F5 here. I mean, I might just play that move too.
Mm-hmm. And then king F6, G5, and then start expanding on the other fronts.
Because white's pawns are immobilized, right? This structure here, A2, B3, C4, it looks like you have a great pawn chain protected from the base, but you actually can't push them forward. And in an endgame, well, you want to push your pawns forward. If black could play F5 and then somehow push this E pawn to E4, that'd be great. But I actually, now that I sit and think about it, I actually like her decision not to push F5 too soon, because it's not about making a weak pawn. When you play F5, once the queen starts getting on the back rank, your king feels more exposed on F6, for instance. So I do like ultimately that she chose knight to D7 here. Queen D6 is also an option. E5 is a move you can play. She plays queen D6. And Anna showing her understanding of these type of endgames. The knight is superior to the bishop in the queenless end. Oh my gosh, queen D4.
Now just the battle. That was so nice, the battle of the queens. And for Greg, I mean, if he had a pawn on B4 here, maybe he would have had a chance to mix things up. But now knight C5, and we can see I kind of stand corrected. I mean, initially when Anna took, I felt like that allowed too much activity.
Yep.
But now I can see she's warded off white's queen. That queen can't come to F3 because of queen A1 check. Greg is rather tied up. Maybe king H2 is what he has to do. And then somehow try to coordinate his pieces and launch a second wave of counterplay. But I don't specifically see how he can do that. How does Anna continue to improve here? Let's say white treads water with king H2.
I think after king H2, I'll think about E5, E4. Because the knight on C5 cannot be dislodged. Anytime you triple A3, your B3 pawn falls. So H4 played by Greg, but E5, E4 is one idea. Knight D7. Look at her just like move her pieces back and forth. Now that you played H4, the G4 square is one that knight might want to hop to. So knight E5, for instance, was the queen trying to go to H7? That doesn't do anything besides get your queen away from the F2 pawn. So
exactly.
Anna can play F5, king F6. Now that her queen is on D4, there are none of these maneuvers that Greg had as possibilities earlier. Okay, she plays F6. She's being a bit more solid. She might try G5. And this king, watch out for king D6, king C5. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens at some point.
The weaponized king, yeah. And the path has been paved. Queen D3 such a nice, such so patient.
And the G4 square is now really a problem for white, because if I get a back rank check with a knight G4 check, you have to be really worried about those consequences. She goes back to D4. She doesn't have much time left, but she has been outplaying Greg throughout this. F5 also threatens F4 for black. That's one of the reasons why I'm looking at that move. And she really is outplaying Greg smoothly throughout this endgame.
Yeah, but she's got to be very careful. Obviously, they're clocking king H2, maybe knight G4, followed by F5 and queen to G1.
Oh,
there might be checkmate.
Knight G4, throw that in.
Checkmate alert, king H3, F5, or...
Okay. Ooh, going after F2. That's beautiful.
I like it. F3 has to be played, and then
there's knight E3. After F3, I might play queen D3. Like take my queen, I have knight F2 check and trade the queens.
That is amazing.
Okay, she played knight E3, which is the move you absolutely play in time trouble. Look at his bishop on G2. You like that piece, Danya?
I love that. But that is the best. I would love to have that bishop any day. Any day of the week, give me that bishop.
F5. Okay, E5 also
F5 also good.
F5 now. Push those pawns.
And
F5,
then F4, crunching through, chiseling her way into black's king side.
This queen on E2 is dominated by the queen on C3 and knight on E3. Queen D3. Okay. She could have actually
buying
gained
herself
more
some
space.
time. No rush. G5. Okay. I mean, same general idea.
Yep.
Look at white's pieces completely immobilized. Total domination by black's tandem. Now Greg is also low on time, and this is so much harder to play with white than with black when you have 9 seconds on your clock.
This is a masterclass. I honestly feel like I'm learning from this endgame.
Yes, she's bringing. Some of the things Anna did initially were beyond me, but now I realize how it all came together, and all of it, in retrospect, makes perfect sense.
Oh, look at that bishop on G2. It's the worst piece you could possibly have.
Queen B2. Oh,
there it is.
E4 and king E5.
Yes.
This?
She's taking all the pawns.
Mistake, yeah.
And E4.
E4,
yep.
yeah.
King E5, king D4. White has to lose the tempo from the F3 square.
Absolutely filthy position.
What?
Oh.
Wait, what was king of 6?
What? King D4.
Wait, what was that?
It's still winning. F3.
It's still winning. Oh my gosh, that scared me though. What was that?
That was a bad pre-move, I guess, when you sometimes move your mouse, you accidentally, I don't know. Okay, now, very luckily for Anna, it's still winning.
Oh my gosh, that really scared me. But ignoring the fact that she played king f6 definitely was a nervous move and a time scramble. Danya, I seriously mean that. That was a fantastic game, not just for Blitz. If I saw it in a classical game, I would just go and study that for a while. That was so instructive.
The positional understanding displayed by Anna, and every single move she made had a purpose. Every single maneuver of the knight from c5 to e5, back to c5, back to e5, every single pawn movement, all of that came together beautifully in the end. The restriction of the bishop on g2, combining threats against White's king with, just the finest technique in terms of pushing that pawn majority through. Unbelievable game by Anna. I am completely on the same page with you. This is something to be studied, even in terms of getting better at classical chess.
And Greg is a jokester, but he showed great respect to Anna before the match, talking about, he was joking about other players, but saying, Anna Zatonskih is a really tough opponent for him. I bet you in the post-mortem, he's going to mention game 3 as being like, that was just a sight to behold. And Greg with the black pieces playing very quickly here. White has more space. Look at this pawn on d5. Look at this pawn on c4. White can play b4. There it is. And this is the exact type of position, Donnie, you were talking about this. This is the exact position that Anna likes from the White side, where you just make relatively simple plans. You have more space. I would even consider, rook b1 is one of the moves that is very typical there. Queen to b2 makes a lot of sense if you don't want to have bishop f5 with a tempo for black, but I guess bishop f5 is not that big a deal. She just moves her rook.
Yeah, rook b2, I suppose, but
I don't like moving my rook off the first rank just when there's a rook on a1, but because the knight's on a6, it's okay.
Yeah, exactly, and I don't see any potential ways to exploit that. Now, White has to be careful, for example, not to put her queen for whatever reason, like on c2, for example, so that there'll be AB, knight b4. But I do like Greg's choice more than the Slav. I think this at least affords some. C6 is a very risky move. Because,
knight h4.
Yeah, exactly. And then DC and b5 becomes possible.
Yep.
But so he's got to take risks like this. He's got to make it tactical at all costs, really. I would go as far as to say.
I don't like this here, though. DC, BC, knight h4, hitting the bishop. Hitting the bishop here.
Yeah, and b5. Oh, gosh.
And then b5 comes, and you can't take me on b5 without losing an exchange on the a8 square. So I think tactically there's a flaw here. And it's funny because we've talked about Anna being this really fine positional player and maybe shying away from tactics. When you try to force tactics as an aggressive tactical player, mistakes like this happen because you're like, oh, I'm passive here. I don't really have space for my pieces. I'm cramped. There's knight h4. So the move order perhaps doesn't actually matter too much. Sometimes it does, but here I don't think it does. Just take on c6 and play b5, and there's a problem with this rook on a. And if dc6, bishop c6, you're not happy about how your d6 pawn looks, knight f5 capturing on d6, or maybe even b5 nonetheless as a move here. But yeah, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, that's what tilts you the most, really, in my experience, is when you try to artificially impose your will on your opponent in terms of getting a certain type of position. And guess what? Your opponent is so confident that even when you do that, they take their time and then they just refute the heck out of what you were trying to do. That's just such a frustrating feeling, not being able to catch a single break, not being able to get the type of position you want to get. And I think Greg is starting to regret that move c6 here. It was the right idea maybe, but the execution was way premature. He just wasn't ready for it.
Where did Anna just run to, by the way?
Oh, I didn't notice her camera.
She's back. She's also, she has 2 kids. Like, she was trying to say that, hopefully her husband is taking care of them and so they don't come in. But she came back immediately. But Danya, there's also a tactic here that I want to point out. Bishop takes c6 is probably the move you want to play if you're Greg and he's sitting and thinking. But knight f5, there's a queen g5 coming and things like that. And you might just get checkmated in some of these lines. Like queen e6 is bishop h3, kicking your queen off of the diagonal, threatening pawn to b5, forking the pieces, and discovers the knight h6 check. The queen falls on e6. So Anna Zatonskih, she is up 2-1 after that brilliant round 3 victory. And this one is just really looking like her game. And Greg Shahade's time usage suggests that.
Yeah, he doesn't know what to capture with, because, you know, it's a question of choosing the lesser evil. But after BC B5, I honestly feel like Black is busted. I mean, I don't see even a way to get the remotest compensation for either the exchange or all of the positional concessions that Black will be making. I do think he's got to bite the bullet, play bishop c6, knight f5, and then maybe queen d8, something like that. He does play bishop c6.
Oh no, here comes knight f5. That's the move. But
this is still so nasty, yeah.
And you know what's funny, Danya, is that the bishop f5 inducing rook b2 in many ways helped white, because now you can double in the b file in some of these variations. So the rook on b2 is actually good. Okay, so bishop h3 here.
And now Anna's got enough time to make a measured decision. Maybe bishop h3, king h8, Robert.
But then b5.
b5, oh my goodness. 94, nah.
Ooh, you're getting tactical on me.
Maybe something like that to, you know.
I don't think it works, but you're sassy, and I appreciate the sass.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I try to be.
So, I mean, I can show that variation just to put on the board for bishop h3, king h8, because if not for king h8, knight h6 is check to your king. The queen on e6 is under attack. b5 is the threat. So king h8, b5, knight e4 by Danya, saying, let me get at your queen, try to force some series of trades. And I was thinking that I could take on e4 and even just take on a6 and say,
and b7.
Have fun trading more pieces, because I take on b7, I take on d6, I have a passed pawn here. That should be all she wrote.
And white can double on the b file, as you pointed out. Yeah, bishop h should be played. I mean, Anna is on fire right now. She's, as I sometimes say of my opponent when I'm tilted, she's seeing everything.
Yeah, she's that's a great move to play. Maybe a takes b4 here for Greg. He plays knight e4.
I was thinking about knight e4 actually immediately. I think that's a good move.
Okay, so can I just do this? Oh, I don't mind. I'm like, can I just do the same thing and take your knight on a6?
Yeah, b4 takes a6.
So what about just knight e4, bishop e4, knight takes d6, queen h3, knight takes e4? Haven't I just won a pawn?
Then I play maybe a takes b4, knight c5.
Oh my gosh, Danya. But then I have your back rank is also a problem. Rook a8, rook a2, and you can't take my rook because queen d8 is checkmate.
Wow. And I'm lost on the spot because you take my knight.
That's so crazy.
I love a very nice line.
These rich tactics here. What else can white do? Because queen e3 is also a move, by the way. Because queen e3, knight takes e3 is going to go queen g5. Threatening checkmate, threatening knight e7, things like this. But maybe you have queen f6 there.
Queen f6, yeah.
I'm in trouble. So I should not sacrifice other people's pieces.
I actually really like the concept of take c4, takes d6. And for Greg there, he does have rook a d8. He has certain... I can see why Anna might be hesitant to go for this, because that queen h3 lends a bit of an intimidating appearance.
Yep.
She's trying to find something more decisive, but I'm actually not seeing it, believe it or not. I think knight e4 is a very strong practical chance.
There it is.
And there it is.
There it is.
That's exactly what she does.
She is a very practical player. She may spend more time than most people deem necessary for some decisions, but that instead of going for some kind of crazier line that might backfire, you visualize this position of knight takes e4. That now it's on the board, and you're like, I'm up a pawn. So unless I'm getting back rank checkmate, this line might happen with this rook a2 stuff, by the way.
Yeah.
But unless
that was sharp, bro.
Wait,
no, takes it in queen b4. I saw this.
Rook takes queen b4, and the rook covers the back rank after rook a1 check. I was waiting for this to happen too, Danya. So
yeah, that's the first thing I thought. It was, knight b4, and I have rook a1, but queen b4 and rook b1, and that Anna will see this in 3 seconds.
Yes, because actually queen takes b4 is like the only move. You don't really want to play rook to b1 or something.
Yeah, that's the worst thing about blunders like this is you don't leave your opponent a choice. It's not like, your opponent's got to spot this resource, and I'm checking to see Greg's. Yeah, Greg staying calm, but no, my phone had a bit of a delay, but he was watching the stream.
Yeah.
He's not doing anything.
Pointing to his
b7.
Yeah, just take on b7 and I might play rook b1 just to make sure I don't blunder any back rank checkmates. But queen takes b7. Dungeon's point is you steal a pawn, and the rook can always slide back to b1 with the queen's protection. But yeah, rook b1 is a very sensible move. hey, Greg, you're never going to back rank checkmate me here. And even rook to e1. Say, I'm up a knight. You're not mating me. I'm protected. Knight c3, of course, is the best move. Rook c2, I go queen b3. Just chase down the rook.
And rook d1 forces the rook trade.
Yep, rook d2, rook d1.
Man, and just don't go e4 here.
I was about to say e4 would win the rook if not for queen takes f2 check. So rook d1 played.
Yeah, and her time management has been good too. That's enough time with an increment. It's not ideal, but it's plenty of time not to blunder, and that's all you need here. You don't need to demonstrate any sort of extraordinary technique.
Oh, she blundered the e2 pawn.
But knight e7.
Oh, you're the devil. But knight e3 too is a threat. So knight e7 check with a fork, winning the queen, knight e3, winning the rook. That's it. So she was very smart to move her rook out the way. Queen d3 I would play. There it is.
Yep.
Anna continuing to be that very practical player. There might be even some mating threats.
Yeah, knight e7 to queen d8.
Yep, knight e7, queen d8. Checkmate.
Wow.
Checkmate. Queen d8, queen g8, queen h8 check, queen takes g7 check. All is going to happen.
Oh, my lands. Queen d8. Yeah.
Here it is. Yep. Keep it going. Check. Take g7. And that's mate.
Wow.
Anna Zatonskih. Now, Johnny, I have to be honest with you here. I have not seen Anna play too much online blitz. I did see her match up against Alexander Kostyanyuk in the Women's Speeches Championship. Kostyanyuk is a very strong grandmaster, a multi-time Russian champion, a staple of the Russian women's Olympic team, and a former women's world champion. So all of the accolades you can think of. And Anna didn't really look like herself that I know in that match. She struggled out of the gates in the 5-minute portion, split the 3-minute segment with a 1-second increment, 4.5 to 4.5, and then got crushed in the bullet. Now, Greg, I'm sure, is thinking in a bullet, time control, he is the favorite, but it doesn't feel very nice to be the favorite in the bullet if you're down, say, 3 games heading into the bullet. So Anna right now, with her 2-game lead and the momentum after losing the first game, you got to be impressed.
Yeah, I mean, not only the score, but also the quality of the games. She has played unbelievably well, both in terms of practicality and finding moves that are going to cause trouble to Greg and getting her types of positions, but she's also been very tactically sharp when that's required. She hasn't miscalculated in critical moments. Last game we saw, bishop h3, knight takes d6, knight takes c4. She makes excellent decisions in critical moments. Just an incredible start to the match for Anna.
Yes, and queen. This funny thing is, queen takes on d5, queen retreats to d7, queen goes to c7. You're spending a lot of time, and for players out there, you're like, my coach told me not to move my queen so many times in the opening. I would say listen to your coach, but Anna Zatonskih is very experienced, and you look at the foundation of this position for Black. This pawn on e6 is actually such a huge thorn in White's side because it takes away some critical squares and it keeps Black completely safe. So your king is in the center, but under no duress whatsoever. Now, knight g5, queen h5, those are the type of things you want to unleash on the Black king side, but that's probably why Anna hasn't put her king to g8 just yet. You have to look out for bishop takes h7 check sacrifices, for example, with knight g5 to follow, queen h5, queen h7 mate, right? We've all blundered into this many times.
Yeah, that's the famous Greek gift or the Trojan horse. No matter how many times we see it, once in a while, you still castle absentmindedly. Bishop takes h7 appears on the board, and you start kicking yourself. And here specifically, it might not be simple because the king walks out to g6, but Anna might once again decide to castle long as she did in that first game. That didn't turn out too well for her, but this is a different kettle of fish. And Greg trying to stop that. But bishop g5 seems a little bit artificial.
f6.
At least to me.
Yeah, you're inviting f6.
And then that can actually help Black by preparing g5 if she castles long.
Right, and if you play f6, you're sort of hinting, and not sort of, you pretty strongly are hinting that you are going to castle queenside.
Yeah.
And g5 is a threat. Sorry to cut you off there, Daniel, but g5 and e5, right? f6 actually helps you play e5 and then maybe f5 and push those pawns. So she plays h6, maybe she's just going to go g5 right away.
Yeah, and then castle. And I mean, I actually do agree with you, Robert. I think f6 was a little bit better, but this is also fine. And, okay, knight b4 is interesting.
I like it. I wasn't expecting it, but I like it now.
So what's the idea of bishop e4, for example?
Bishop e4, probably bishop c6.
Uh-huh.
And she's just saying my foundation is so solid. Bishop b5 is another possibility if you want to play it, just to irk Greg's, get on his nerves here, because the queen is under attack on e2, and then you're like, well, am I displacing the queen or am I improving her position with queen to d2? But like, I don't know. I just played bishop c6, then castle kingside. There it is. There's no sacrifice on h7 anymore, so castle and kingside feels very safe, especially without bishops on the board.
Yeah, and you mentioned the rock solid foundation of Black's position. I think this cannot be overstated enough. Players like Georg Meyer, who champion these lines of the French, that's what makes, Georg's a tremendously strong blitz player. I hate going into these types of positions against him because Black might seem cramped. It might seem like what should be better, but it's so solid. You just cannot find any ways to access any weaknesses. But after knight c6, speaking of accessing weaknesses, maybe queen g4 is worth a shot. Trying to kind of stir up some trouble for Black.
I guess queen g4 would have been met by g5 and then castle queenside. So that's the funny thing about keeping the king in the center for so long, is that you still do have access to the queenside. Okay, just trade on g3, play rook d8.
Yeah, the Black has no troubles. This should be just equal in my eyes.
Yes, and this is not quite like the position we saw a couple of games ago when white ended up being stuck with a light square bishop. Here you'll have a good knight regardless. So, the knight on f3 is much better than that bishop on the light squares ended up being. And so at least white doesn't have the potential downsides of that earlier game. And g4, g5 is one of the potential upsides of having a double pawn. Look at this growing attack. It seems like it's not that big a deal, and it shouldn't be. But you allow a timely g5, which also threatens g6 in addition to taking on h6, to undermine the defense of the e-pawn. So I play rook e1 here. I would not.
Yeah, absolutely. And then maybe rook d5, but then c4 comes into play. Greg, obviously there's so much left in the match, but you don't want to sabotage, your winning chances with a move like rook takes d8. If Greg needed a draw, yes, you can take the rook. Here, I absolutely agree with Robert. Rook e1, trying to push g5 through. Rook d3, I would snap that off the board and maybe go knight e5, because a draw more than satisfies Anna with the black pieces, especially given the types of positions she's getting with white.
Right. And actually, maybe it's Black who could be slightly better in some of these endgames. The double pawns on the king side don't really help when you don't have pieces to kind of back it up. So she's going to play knight e5. I have a strong feeling. She might play queen d8. But again, we get a situation where the 3-on-2 on the queen side favors white in these queenless endgames. So queen d8 is one of those moves that you sort of want to play, but then you're hesitating. You're like, I just won a game with that advantage earlier in this match. g6. I like that move too, because king f8 would have been met by queen h7, whereas g6 says, okay, your queen's no longer getting access there. I can park my king on g7, play queen to f4 for Black. So white still needs to be a bit careful, if you ask me, though I do think ultimately it shouldn't be too dangerous for white. g3, for instance, looks like a fine move. Queen e3, taking away f4 and attacking h6. So Greg should be fine here, but we have seen on a display such impressive technique that's what I guess leads me to a bit of recency bias.
Definitely. And my gut instinct is that this game, it should end in a draw, and it very well might end in a draw, especially after the knights are swapped, as they just have been. Mm-hmm. This creates an interesting dynamic. We haven't had a queen endgame yet. We've had this pawn structure, obviously, in many games. White's definitely not worse here. And that pawn on g4 serves the purpose of also being kind of a stopper against Black's pawn majority. As you pointed out, doubled pawns can sometimes actually have a good property in them, that one of the top pawn sort of stops the opponent's pawn majority, and then the bottom pawn safeguards the king, as the g pawns are doing. Now that queen on b4 is a great blockader, so I just don't see Greg making too much progress here.
And I like her decision to play a4. The one thing you don't want to allow is you talked about this in the earlier game, Danya, correctly, was that the pawns, even if it's a smaller pawn majority, 3-on-2 versus 4-on-3, the smaller pawn majority often has an easier time cracking through a passed pawn. So what Greg needs to accomplish is some kind of a3, b4 and push those pawns, but the queen on b4, good luck making that happen. So he actually might just make a repetition here. I would play on a little bit, I'd say, if I were Greg, but the queen on b4 is such a good piece and you're not dislodging it.
Yeah, your nod on Black doesn't really need to do much. Maybe king g2 would be a practical attempt to pose some problems for Black and basically ask Anna how she will continue. But, you know, but the only thing that I'm struggling with a little bit is finding like a waiting move for Black after just something like King G2. Anna offers a draw.
Greg should play on.
Yeah, I agree. You've got to take your chances here, even if it's, he takes it.
Okay. I don't love that decision by Greg, but objectively the position was equal. So it's not like I'm saying he misevaluated, he misjudged anything, but he was up 30 seconds. If anyone had winning chances, it did feel like it was Greg at that point, just because Anna could make some mistake at some moment. And as I mentioned, that 3-on-2 majority felt like there were some chances somewhere perhaps to create a pass pawn. But now Anna gets the white pieces again. And is she going to go for a knight h? Question answered. No, she's not going for knight h4 because h6 was played. But players do like to play this knight h4 line, just secure the two bishops and claim I have an advantage simply because of that fact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've experimented with this line for white. I think we had it in one of the previous matches. I think it was John against David. I'm pretty sure, but I don't remember. No, it was Christoph against Alina. That's right. Yeah, that didn't sound right. And Christoph put Alina in a lot of trouble with the white pieces here, because even though the bishop on f5 is outside the pawn chain, which favors Black, white has a very concrete plan associated with pushing that e pawn to e4. So he can play c5, then if queen c7, bishop f4, then knight d2, and quickly e4. Yep. But this position is different because Black's already about to castle. So Alina's king sometimes got stuck on e8 with that bishop on d6. Some of you might remember those games.
Yep.
Here, Black should definitely not have any objective problems, but, you know, again, Anna likes these types of positions, so we'll see how this unfolds.
And c5 sometimes can be made by queen a6 and then pawn b6, trying to chisel at that chain. But whenever you put your queen on a6, let's say after c5, queen a6, rook e1, you have to watch out for bishop f1 followed by e4, because the queen is actually not always in the best square out on a6. Just something to keep in mind in this kind of position. I think that's why Anna hasn't moved yet, is c5 is obviously a main idea in a position like this, but it's committal. Because once you push that c-pawn, you release the tension in the center of the board, and then you give your opponent the opportunity to break with b6 in a timely manner. Yeah,
well explained. And yeah, I mean, Anna's got some decisions to make here, but she decides to take the queen. I haven't seen this played this way very much. She just trades everything off. I would play ED here with Black.
Yep. You don't want to play C takes and give yourself double isolated pawns.
But now Black has B5, B4 to throw into the mix, right? Again, we see the double pawns weak on the surface, but that pawn on B6 could be used as kind of a battering ram to introduce a lot of sort of discord among White's ranks.
Yeah, I've actually had this position many times in Blitz online, and this b5, b4 plan is super frustrating, not to mention knight d7, knight b6, and so on. And Black's play on the queen side just feels easier than White's play or presumed play in the center. Because e4 doesn't threaten anything. My d5 square is so well protected, and if you ever take me on d5, you're left with this isolated pawn d4. Anna retreats her knight to d3. Interesting decision. It does make you second guess your b5 move, because sometimes there's a knight c5 or a knight to f4. But you know, with knight e5, it looked good. It was in prime location in the center of the board, but didn't actually do anything. So bishop f4 I'd play, threatening bishop c7 to win a pawn and developing my piece.
Greg's stopping e4 because the d4 pawn will hang. But e4 is not anything to worry about, even if the d4 pawn weren't hanging. That center probably is more of a burden than a strength for White, and Greg plays b5, which is very much sensible. Now b4 becomes a very unpleasant idea because that knight has to return to b1. I guess Anna doesn't mind it given that the center is closed, but maybe, I don't know what to suggest for Greg. Is he worried about knight takes c6? Maybe, yeah, so he goes bishop c8.
I also would have played bishop c8, and I would have done it very quickly like he did, because just giving that capture with the bishop h3 at some moment, it feels a little bit loosey-goosey. Whereas playing bishop c8, I know it looks like you're setting up for the next game with all your pieces here on the back rank, but Black is so solid. Look at your base pawn on b7. You can't get to that. And the king side, of course, is safe for like e4, one of these moves that gains you some space, but you also can be in danger of collapsing. de4, fe4, maybe then bishop g4, something like this, and then a knight d7. But the bishop on g4 will get kicked eventually with h3, so it's not so strong over there.
Absolutely, and I'm beginning to like Greg's position here. Even though objectively I think it's very double-edged, there's also G5 to add into the mix.
There's G5, there's B4. You're kicking both. I think
So
knight
that's
to
why
D4.
Anna takes. But now even knight PD7, I guess D5 there maybe by white.
I think that was the right choice, though, right, Danya, to take with the 94?
Practical choice, because Black's got a big initiative after F takes G4. And these games are all about initiative. Blitz in general is tilted in terms of you don't have much time to deal with a strong initiative. So you want your play to be relatively simple. You don't want to have to calculate 15 variations on every move.
Right. And this position is definitely simpler for Black to play because, as I was mentioning before, no weak base pawns, whereas the D4 pawn, the A2 pawn, both under attack. Black can consider many things. You said knight BD7. I was about to say knight A6, trying to hop this knight to B4 where it attacks A2 and also threatens knight C2 where you're hitting the rook on A1. And very importantly, this pawn on D4 is such a target. It's a really bad pawn, honestly. And bishop e3 doesn't help because knight b4 still threatens a2, and knight c2 is even more forceful in that variation.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I don't exactly see how to solve some of the problems. Maybe knight f6 and d5, but then again, knight b4 is very, very strong. So, no, white is definitely worse here. And that decision to trade queens, Robert, in retrospect, it's easy, again, to say in hindsight what was good and what wasn't, but I feel like it gave Black a very easy game, and it saddled white with all of the difficult decisions, whereas Greg kind of just makes natural developing moves, and they're all very strong. Anna had all the troubles in that endgame.
Right. And I think she needs to play a move like a3 here, as sad as it is, there it is, because now knight b4, you can move your... Well, actually, maybe knight b4 is still good. How are you stopping me from playing knight c2?
Yeah, it is. I was thinking about that. Knight c2, huge threat. Knight b4, rook d2 looks horrendously awkward. That's what he does.
Not a fan of rook d2, but if it's a necessary move, then it's a necessary move. But it looks really bizarre.
No, it looks so shaky. No, there's no way rook d2 can work. I mean, it doesn't even pose any threats. Black.
You know what's funny? Rook d2. Maybe I have rook takes d4, rook takes d4, knight c2.
Wow. I actually, I can't save. That's very nice. That is very nice.
It's actually very mean, if you ask me. It hurts to look at.
Well, you're very mean, but the move is very nice. I want to distinguish between you, the commentator, Grandmaster Robert Hess, and the nature of the move.
True.
So
I appreciate that. It's important to make it very clear for everybody. And now the knight is under attack on b4, and knight c2. Perhaps then she's planning to take on f6 and play d5. And the knight on c2 is a little awkward in some variations. I still like Black's position, of course, and knight c2 is played. But maybe that's her idea, is just even if you give up the d pawn, if it forces Black to capture the c pawn, then the double b pawns will be very weak and potentially vulnerable. So d5 to start with actually is something that comes to mind, just giving up the pawn.
Yes. Yes. D5, I've just been calculating D5, G5 with some interesting complications. Knight e2 by Anna, but now knight takes e2, bishop g4, also knight e4, bishop g4. And then bishop e2, right? And rook c2, there's bishop d3 to add insult to injury.
Ouch. Can't even protect your rooks.
This is, once again, to borrow the favorite term of Russian commentators, devastating. This is devastating for white.
I think you just have to take the two bishops, king f2 or something, allow this bishop takes e4, excuse me, bishop takes e2. Now I'm making mistakes on the squares, but allow the bishop to take on e2, say I have two bishops, I'm worse, I'm down a pawn, but I have some chances. And the reason why two bishops against a bishop knight give you chances is if you can give your bishop for the knight and are left with opposite colored bishops, drawing chances tend to be quite high in opposite colored bishop endgames, even if you are down a pawn. So bishop e2, king e2, knight d4 check, let's say king, f2, knight b3, and eventually Black takes his dark square bishop. Having the opposite colored bishops does provide very good chances to hold. So bishop e3, just develop and play on from there. So all this is happening. King on f1 on a light square. That way the dark square bishop for Black can't attack it. Bishop e3, of course.
Yeah, you don't want to fall asleep here if you're Greg and just start making generic improving moves. I really like knight b3 is keeping the knight. And what you pointed out, Robert, yeah, whenever there's any possibility of the position transitioning into an obstacle at bishop position, you just don't want to get too complacent. And something like bishop g5 here would ensure that that doesn't happen. Right. Although that does create another set of double pawns. I just don't think that matters here, given the state of black's pieces.
Here, rook d1. Rook d1. Right. I thought she played rook d1, king d1, and bishop b2. There's king c2.
But bishop d4 at the end, and then
king
b3.
takes b3.
Exactly.
I get my opposite colored bishops.
Exactly. And bishop h3, bishop c8 would have been very strong there as well in the end.
Exactly. So that's exactly what I was going for. And she starts with bishop h3, which you can't criticize that move because now rook d1 is even more potent a threat.
Exactly.
Yeah. You got me. So maybe c5 for black.
c5, yeah, to cement and prepare to cement the knight.
Whoa. Oh, bishop g2 and bishop f3. I think she just is feeling a bit aimless here and saying that black has bishop d4 now. Oh, okay.
Okay, bishop d4 still, but b4 becomes possible. Okay, I guess.
B6?
Knight d2 just resigns.
Oh, nice.
Now you can play bishop b2, knight d4, knight c5. With 4 extra pawns, you can safely go into obstacle and bishop endgame.
No, you cannot. Good game by Greg. Yeah. I don't think the opening was one. Well, Anna's opening was fine, but the decision to take on b6 wasn't a good one. Oh, knight c5, you can't even.
Yeah, and I mean, he's up 3 pawns here. He definitely exploited his chances, and he played accurately enough to cause problems. And again, Anna's going to be kicking herself for taking on b6. I do like those positions in general for white if she plays c5, but she gave too many assets to black, including that pawn on b6, the open a file, all of which Greg exploited to eventually crush up that center.
Right. So Greg strikes back. He's now down 1 point in the match. He started off with a win in game 1. Then Anna won 3 games in a row. And so finally Greg strikes back. He's down 1 point. And this could be our final game of the 5-minute time portion because we have just over 8 minutes left. And this game just started. As you can see the players' clocks, if they go the length of this game and use all their time, it's clearly ends this portion. So she goes back to these knight e7 lines. She's going to play knight b to c6. We might need to ask her in the post-match interviews about her preparation with these lines because I feel like I often see the knight on f6 rather than on e7.
Yeah, I actually haven't seen much this, if at all, knight on e7. Interesting. But it makes sense.
It does. And it is confusing Greg because he's spending time in the opening, which he tends not to do.
Yep. And I think something like knight g5, he's got to try something a little bit crazy. But on the other hand, if this backfires, black's just going to be winning. I mean, knight g5, maybe bishop h2, bishop f4. I don't really see it.
Right.
That trade of knights really lessens the load on black's position. And again, Anna's got that flexibility of deciding where she's going to castle.
And what's so nice about her position, in addition to what you just mentioned about castling in either direction, is the e5 square. That's one that's often vulnerable in the French for black. But here, the knight, the bishop, the queen all team up. They eye that square. And so you're not getting any sort of knight e5 jump. If you can imagine this knight not being on c6, then knight e5 is a very typical plan. It's like, please take me, give me the 2 bishops in an open position. I'm happy to have that. But h3 played on what did she do last time? Oh, h3 was not played. It was bishop g5 was played by Greg. So we have our first change from that game, h6 by Anna. And as you've said many times, Danya, g5, g4 with this hook on h3. If black castles queenside, I could see a vicious attack being uncorked.
Yeah, absolutely. The creation of a hook on the same side that your king is always a dangerous thing that could always come back to haunt you in the event of a pawn storm. So a move like h3, you can play it absentmindedly, sort of just, okay, let me get the pawn out of the line of fire, the bishop and the queen, and then later on you don't realize how much it has negatively impacted the safety of your king. Now, I don't want to overblow the significance of this. Everything really is going to depend on where Anna decides to castle. I think a case could be made for both. My gut instinct is Anna's going to castle short, castle kingside. She's going to castle Nigel. She
played knight e5, but I was thinking she was going to play knight to b4. And she said puts her knight on e5. Bishop takes h6 would be a discovery tactic on the bishop on e5, but bishop h2 check says, oops, my bishop is protected. Then I take your bishop and I'm up material. g3, sure, might trap this bishop on h2, but you're going to get checkmated when I just take on g3. So it's a tactic that wouldn't work out. bishop e4, giving up b2, but having rook to b1, then rook takes b7 as a follow-up. So you actually do not want to capture this pawn on b2 just yet if you're giving up the b7 pawn. Maybe bishop b5, though.
Yes, and then sort of asking the queen where it wants to park itself. Oh, and then you still want to castle long after queen f3, correct?
Queen f3, I guess it doesn't make sense because I've allowed c4 ideas, maybe.
Right.
Like I'm inviting you into an attack in this variation. So I'm going to take my move back and say bishop b5 should not be played.
Yeah, it's an interesting position. It's that a lot of pieces sort of jammed on the e file, and that creates an interesting dynamic. But if black decides to just castle immediately, then after something like rook a1, I feel like maybe you could snag that pawn on b2. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what to do here for black. A lot of options. Bishop c6 is very sensible, I think.
Yes, because the discoveries still don't work out for white. Bishop c6, queen 6. No matter where you move your bishop, like the only quote-unquote winning material discovery is bishop takes h6, but then bishop takes b2 happens, where I'm attacking your rook on a1, my bishop protects g7, your bishop on h6 is under attack. So not advisable to give up a center pawn in a 3-pawn chain for an outside pawn like this. It ruins your pawn structure completely.
Yep. And again, we've got a relatively equal position where a lot of pieces could be traded potentially, of course, down the d file, as we have seen several times. So we'll see how Greg handles this. I think c3 is perfectly sensible, just defending the pawn on b2, blunting black's bishop. No problems for either sides here.
She immediately is like, okay, my bishop's been on e5 for too long, too many tactics, drops the bishop to f6, and here comes those rook d8. Don't blunder h6.
Yeah.
So rook d8 is the move you want to play, but you should probably make sure you're not hanging a pawn because the g7 pawn is pinned. And, well, how do you deal with that? King h7, king h8? I
think king h8, because king h7, potentially there's a possibility of a fork on e4. I'm not saying, obviously not immediately, if the queen leaves c8, c6. I think that's the way you have to think sometimes, you know, to avoid potential tactics, not only immediate tactics.
You know what I like, Danya, was instead of king g8, I was thinking of queen b5. Because I'm attacking b2, I'm giving up h6 for that b2 pawn. And if you play a slow move like rook d2, I was going to play h5 as black. And just my queen on b5 protects that pawn over here. I'm not saying necessarily that was a great idea, but it's just something I was considering.
Again, it's a nice idea. I'm surprised how many nice ideas you're offering, Robert, given what I mentioned about you. I suppose I need to, separate the grain from the chaff here, however the expression goes, the commentator from his suggestions.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you hurling an insult my way for no good reason whatsoever.
None.
Because I'm getting used to you, I can put up with it. But you're on thin ice, my friend.
Okay, so, I'll bear that in mind. That's the expression my 5th grade computer teacher used before kicking me out of the class. That's the only time I've shared this story too many times, but the only time I've gotten kicked out of class.
You definitely deserved it, and you probably deserve to be kicked out more times.
More, yeah, exactly.
So, what do you make of this position, Danya, where white is up about a minute on the clock, close to that. Black is trying to fend off white on the d file, but clearly it's white who has the advantage along the d file. So I think we both would agree white is better, but my essential question is, how much better is white in a position like this?
So I think, practically speaking, white's got a very stable edge because, well, control over the d file is going to be important. So, for example, if white plays b3 and Anna takes on d4, maybe even queen takes d4, but now rook d7 I thought was very strong. There's a really nice trap. Rook d7, and if takes rook d8, there's, look at that, queen b4, queen takes b4, Robert, and rook takes d8, queen f8. Sorry, I went a little fast there, but...
Say it again, what are you talking about?
Well, he didn't do that anyway. I thought rook d7 for Greg.
Instead of b3, you mean?
Instead of queen f3, but they're over that now. There was just a nice tactical line there.
Okay, well, you're saying random tactics while I'm trying to make constructive points, so you're really just distracting from the show. And so to everybody watching, I apologize. Don't listen to Danya. No, I'm kidding. Danya has great advice and has been giving great advice, but I have no idea what he was just talking about because, yeah.
Yeah, I went down the rabbit hole. I mean, sometimes you notice a line and then you're just obsessed with it. Well, here now rook d8, rook b4 is the problem, right? And then d1 is covered. Maybe a5, but then rook d7. You see, there's all of these threats, and I'm not sure Anna can maybe queen c7 defends against both.
Queen c7 is a really nice move, and not an easy one to play. because you're retreating and you're leaving your rook on f8 in what seems like a passive situation. But even after queen c7, just queen d3, pawn c4, you can make progress with white. And that's what's so hard about these positions when you look at it from the black side. You're like, I just don't have any activity. So sometimes you do sacrifice a pawn for some play, like a queen a5 move, for instance, hits c3, and it's protected by the queen, hits a2, and then perhaps you could push your b pawn in the near future. So queen a5 is another move to consider.
Yes, and
whoa.
Well, she's got to be careful here. E5 is a move that we've discussed previously. It does create some more weaknesses. I'm not sure what her intention is here.
Queen
She's
a5.
kind of also rook b4 was perfectly good as well, I think.
But she was going to play queen a5 regardless. So that way at least she can attack a pawn in response. And then if you push the a pawn, b5.
Oh, I see. So you were right about suggesting, yeah.
It does look very awkward. That's true. Because like even, I guess I can't do what I want. a4, b5. I was trying to go queen d5, but the c3 pawn's hanging, right?
Yeah. So wait, what if you go queen c3? Now queen a6 though, right? Queen e1, there's queen f1.
True.
And that connected passers in a position like this is a humongous asset, not only because of the fact that the pawn is extra, but because any rook endgame is simply by definition lost for black.
She should have played e4 instead of queen a1 check.
Yeah.
You need to get a counterattack on your opponent's king. Actually, maybe this works too.
Maybe it does actually. White has a hard time defending that pawn in f3.
e4. There it is. And now, am I just losing this pawn? Queen c2. The queen is stuck protecting a2 and f2. And black somehow needs this rook to get active, but the f7 pawn is hanging.
Just
but
b4
what is,
maybe?
b4. Okay, I was about to say, what is the waiting move? b4 seems like a good one. Queen c4 probably now. Just
maybe just a3 then.
Well, I want to get my rook active. So queen c4, I could play rook d8 next. f7 would have been protected.
Well, now Anna wants, queen d6 is a threat. And Greg's got to deal with that. But there are several ways of dealing with that. One of which is queen d7 maybe, but then white's pawns get a little flimsy. g3 is a pretty committal move.
Okay, queen d6 gives
now rook e4 resigns.
Yeah. So what she should have done here, I think, is like move like now queen f3 wouldn't have worked. Actually, queen f3 did work. Whoa, I didn't play.
Greg misses it, but it's still completely winning, unfortunately, for Anna. Queen e3, for example, and f5 is so exposing. Queen c3.
Oh, you don't have a move.
That's a good move.
Yep,
yeah,
game over. Wow. Well, that
credit to Greg.
Credit to him for sure. That game looked like it was slightly better for white throughout. Greg was able to push, and finally Anna cracked under the time pressure. This game is not going to count. They're going to abort this game. Because the 5-minute portion is up, and that means Danya and I are going to take a quick break. And when we return, we will see this tied match go into the 3-minute plus 1 second increment. Stay tuned, everybody. We have a brawl ahead of us. Well, we have seen some excellent chess on the board thus far in the IM Not a GM Speed Chess Championship opening round between Greg Shahade and IM Zatonskih. And our daily question was, who is the best trash talker in chess, and does it help or hurt their ability to win games? We have some fantastic responses. We'll start with this one here by Francisco Jose 9P. It's definitely Lawrence Trent, and it doesn't help him win games at all. So he's kind of trash talking himself. And that's, in a way, if you're not winning, but you're trash talking, right? Donnie, am I wrong there?
I don't think you're wrong, actually. And to that extent, Necromancer B's answer, GM Hikaru Nakamura for sure. It's all in good fun. So I don't think it does anything to his games. He's got the wins to back it up, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's trashed me enough times on online Blitz, not by his commentary, but by his play, that it just hurts. So I'm going to move on because now I'm stirring up traumatic memories with Not Yet a GM. Firstly, what a freaking... Oh, are they adding Not Yet a GM, or is that their Twitter handle? Because if that's their Twitter handle, props to you, Not Yet a GM. Greg Shahade is clearly the best trash talker. A super GM at trash. Not sure if it helps or hurts, but it sure is entertaining. It kind of makes him sound like a sanitation worker. He's a super GM at trash. I mean, props to you.
GM at trash, yeah.
Oh, man. Well, we do have many great events on Chess.com. We have the European Online Chess Championship coming your way May 16th. Danya, you and I are not able to participate in that event, but it sounds like it will really be a fun one. We, of course, have the matchup between myself and Danny Wrench and Luis and Carlos in the USA versus Spanish commentary. So, I mean, I'm going out of order here, but we got so many things coming up. If you want to adopt Danny Wrench, applications seem to be open. You have Wesley So taking on Danny on April 26th. And Danny, I have to ask you, is Wesley going to do it?
Yes. I'm not going to embellish my answer. And maybe Danny's watching this, and maybe this will be my last day as a commentator if I say that, but I'm going to be honest with you, Robert. In the interest of it is my sworn duty to be honest. I think Wesley's got what it takes. And maybe Danny will prove me wrong in his Speed Chess Challenge match. So I've thrown out the glove to Mr. Wrench.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm going to have a new commentator going forward, but Danya, it's been a pleasure commentating with you after calling him out, saying he's going to be adopted by Wesley. But in all seriousness, it is a very fun event. Wesley will try to beat Danny 10 games in a row. Not easy to do. I have lost 10 games in a row. I lost 10 games in a row to Vidit and Bullet yesterday. And Bullet is different than Blitz, but hey, it happens. It happens to the best of us. I'm not ashamed of it. It was on stream.
It does. Well, and there's no adoption happening in this match we're currently watching, as they're off in the 3-minute portion. So, I mean, to me, it seems like Greg is the one that stands to benefit from the time control being shortened. Is there more to that than meets the eye, or is that in fact the case in your opinion?
Well, as I mentioned, against Alexander Kostenyuk, IM Zatonskih lost that match by quite a large margin, but she did tie the 3-minute portion, which was a bit surprising when you think about how strong Kostenyuk is, the chess queen in the type of time control. She's playing in all the Title Tuesdays and events of that nature. There's going to be premium arenas coming up, and she probably will participate in those as well. But IM Zatonskih held her own in the 3-minute. And maybe, Danya, is because that is the time control that resembles over-the-board Blitz. Right? When you play in Blitz tournaments, you play 3 minutes with a 2-second increment. So maybe Anna feels most at home in that time control and not so much in 5 or 1 minute.
Yeah, that is a good point. And, really the Bullet section is the one where Anna's got to be careful not to slip into, acute time pressure out of the opening. Here, this increment plays a huge role. As you point out, Robert, Anna lives in Europe now, so I'm pretty sure she does get her fill of over-the-board Blitz tournaments, which I think are more prevalent in Europe. So I don't think she should have any problems managing her time here. With that being said, she does like to go into a deep think in critical positions. So Greg's got to continue to try to complicate the situation, get tactical positions. I don't think his strategy should change too much.
Right. And, well, speaking of strategies not changing, this knight at a6 is something we have seen from Greg before, and he has just pushed through c6 to c5. And it's a complicated decision right now for white. And I have a highlight of knight to d3 because I do believe ideally you want to play against this pawn on the b7 square, but you don't really want to allow the knight into c5. So knight d3, either after capturing on c5 or immediately, feels like the move. But the issue after bc5, knight c5 is you can't go knight d3 just yet because rook a1, knight b3 is a devastating fork. And you don't want to give black control over the very important a file unless you're getting something in return. Pardon me, I can't speak English. She plays
we all knew that anyway. So
what do you make of this b5 decision, closing down the queen side?
It's very concrete. I mean, again, obviously, yeah. So the knights are swapped. Now, what do we make of this position?
I love White's position. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, because, well, maybe Greg can try to get a knight to b6, but
f3. Just kick this bishop. Maybe bishop h3 here or just g4. I don't know, but the bishop will never play again in this game.
Right, but my concern would be if black does get f5 and eventually that could cause some problems. So you're saying if bishop g6 and just g4.
Maybe bishop h3, honestly. Actually, bishop h3 is a great move because both sides want to capture their opponent's knight, and bishop h3 now doesn't work because rook f to a8 is in time, and there's a pin down the a file.
Right.
So rook a5 was a great move.
Maybe rook a3, yep, and rook a1. But then maybe black plays queen d8, and white's got to be careful because if black's queen appears on the a file, white's got that complex of weak squares on the king side as well.
But watch out for bishop h3, Danya. I know you want to play queen d8, but bishop h3 comes, and my threat is bishop takes knight, and then knight to b6 type of stuff.
Right, that makes sense. I was thinking bishop h3, knight b6.
Okay, makes sense.
We might actually see that on the board.
I'm thinking about sacrificing knight takes c5, rook a3. Oh, but you're not going to take me on a3. My whole point was if you took me on a3, queen a3, dc5, queen c5, I lose f3 too. So ignore me completely, but I'm trying to get a pawn storm.
And she does play bishop h3. And I don't see an alternative to knight b6. Yeah, otherwise, white doesn't actually win material after bishop takes d7 and knight b6. It's more that white gets control of the a file and slams the knight into b6 herself. So this is obligatory, and really depends on who's going to get control of the a file.
Knight b2 or knight takes b6, which you prefer?
I like knight b2 because knight takes. I guess she sees something.
Yeah, I was thinking knight b2 just to keep the knights on the board, and knight b6 was awkward, but she'd probably play queen c3.
Yeah, now rook a7. You cannot. I really feel like you cannot give up control over the a file. That is crucial. You
have no choice because rook a7, I'll play rook 1 to a2, and eventually I'll play queen to a1 with the is it Alyokin, however you want to pronounce
Alekhine, yeah.
Alekhine's last name.
Even Russians mispronounce it, by the way. But anyways.
Yeah, but you get the point of what I'm trying to say. Rook a1 to a2 with queen to a1. I like king f2 because the f3 pawn does need protection. And what did I tell you, Daniel? Look at this bishop on h5.
Yeah, you were absolutely right.
She's trying to ruin her opponent's pawn structure first. But I play g4 and forcing an exchange on g6. She'll play rook a2, queen a1, and try just to eke out a victory here. Oh, f6. I don't like that move.
Look at those light squares.
Why give that check?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say my interpretation of what you say depends only on whether you pronounce Alekhine's name correctly. I wouldn't understand what you had to say otherwise. But look at this. I mean, this is another just incredible positional effort by Anna. And we see it unfolding, and Greg kind of caves. But as you said, he had no choice. Eventually, this would have happened anyway.
This is loss. It has to.
This is loss. He's trying to play bishop takes b5, but he gets mated there.
He gets mated on g8. It's done.
Oh my goodness.
Resignation. What a bind.
Look at this position. This is incredible.
What a bind here.
Incredible.
And black just cannot move. And when he played f6, he should have just played bishop g6 and traded the bishops. I understand you're giving yourself a bad pawn structure, but this is just checkmate. Queen g8, bishop f5 is mate in 2.
Yeah, or bishop f6. I mean, million
you're
different
spoiled
mates.
for choice.
Yep. What a view. Another amazing positional effort by Anna.
And I think, Danya, if I'm reading your tone correctly, you thought that in the quicker time controls, Greg Shahade would end up dominating this match, right?
Yes. I mean, to be honest, I just thought Anna has this propensity for time pressure, and but she's managed her time very, very well in this match and in the previous game. And in these types of maneuvering games, she's capable of making very fast decisions, with a very high degree of accuracy.
Yep.
So simply impressive stuff.
And this is just like the first game, and the king is castled to the king side. And the point is that the d4 pawn will be regained by white, and then you play against this isolated pawn, the IQP on d5. This isolani isn't so bad, because when you think of an isolated pawn, that means inherently the files next to that pawn are open. So in this case, the c file, the e file. So you want to get a knight e4 type of move. Bishop b4, hitting this rook on e1, and the bishop on e7 blocked black's access to the e file. So these sort of trades here, I don't know if I would say it really helps black per se, but it does make bishop d7 followed by rook to e8 feel a little bit better without having your piece in the way.
Yes. Yeah, but I still like, I mean, this happened in the first game, and there Anna's king got stuck. Now knight takes d4. I suppose
she wants
black can consider taking and taking on b2.
Yes, because
but then knight b5 might, well, I guess it doesn't trap the queen.
I'm just trying to show that you can't take on d4 back with that queen there, so that's why knight takes d4 is possible. But we're showing that queen takes b2 happens, and now I stole your b pawn, and maybe it's still good for white, but you have a lot more to think about when you're sacrificing a pawn in the process.
Yes, definitely. Queen b6 is actually a very good move, because in picking up the d4 pawn, it's not that white's going to have a problem with that in the long run, but he might have to waste a lot of valuable time. And Greg actually decides to go for this. And maybe this is a little bit of anxiety that he's feeling here. He's just saying, all right, whatever, I'm just going to do it, and then I'm going to think later.
Right.
But I don't see it after queen takes b2. I don't concretely see the extent of white's compensation.
And knight b5 play, but knight e4, for instance, is totally reasonable for black.
Absolutely. Yeah, he goes for this line, but the funny thing is he's not threatening rook e to b1, because that opens up an escape square for the queen on e5.
Yep, and rook a to b1 allows queen takes a2. So it's the queen cannot be trapped. And knight e4 played, great move by Anna. The knight on b5 requires the defense of this bishop on d3. So after bishop takes e4, I can just take back on e4, but I can also consider queen takes b5 if for some reason I don't like d4. Black's position, it's still a little shaky, I have to admit. Some kind of knight c7 followed by knight takes d5 is in the cards. So I need to move my queen out the way first, but I'm just trying to figure out just exactly how white can make this happen. Queen e3 played. I was saying queen f4.
But you're right, knight c7 is a big threat here.
It is.
And Anna has shown time and again in this match her ability to handle all sorts of positions. And she has not shied away from tactical complications and has played them very, very accurately. But here specifically, it gets a little hairy, because queen e5, there's also f3.
Yep. Trying to kick my knight out from the e4 square. And there are many variations here where you get these bad pawns again. For example, bishop e6, knight c7, rook c8, knight takes e6. You have to always be worried about what happens on this e6 square after f6. There will be this pawn hanging in so many lines. So, yeah, it's not an easy choice right now for Anna. She's going down to a minute on the clock and now under a minute. What is she going to do here, Danya?
Yeah, I'm struggling to find a move for her here. She does,
e6.
And maybe that is the lesser evil, because at least you're not gonna, your position's not gonna crumble entirely with that d-pawn being protected. But what about f3 here? And then rook b1. But does the knight have a good square after f3? Because my idea is knight f6, rook b1.
Oh, you have knight f3, knight f6, knight c7, knight takes e6 too, right?
Oh, that as well, yeah. It seems a little artificial, but f3 maybe a6, but then again, this knight c7 move occurs everywhere and is very strong.
The bishop on d3 is so nice because it's anchored in by this pawn on c2. I don't like this move order, because now after knight e6, f e6, f3, there's just knight c5, and I protect e6 and attack your bishop on d3.
Well, maybe he wants knight e6 and rook 8 b1, rook takes b7, and kind of go for activity, but I don't think black has that much to worry about. She can drop her queen back to f6 and
the f2 pawn's hanging.
Exactly, with potentially even with a queen trade, which is of course in black's hands. I can see this kind of petering out.
And look at the clock, by the way, Donna. You know that Greg is feeling a bit nervous here because his position looked very promising, and now he's the one who's down a few seconds on the clock. Take on c2. Queen takes
on
c2.
c2, yeah. Simple, and f2 hangs.
Wait, maybe even rook takes c2. What happens there?
Queen e6, queen f7. There's rook takes f2. Oh, that's filthy. With an extra defense on the rook on f8.
Exactly. Are you trying to mate me on the back rank? I say nope. And now my rook is protected, so I'm not getting back rank checkmated. And Anna is thinking, I think it's a great moment to think. I know she's now under 30 seconds, but she can play queen takes c2 and likely enter an equalish position But now she's thinking rook takes c2. Maybe I play for more here. And she does play queen takes c2. I think practically it's a good choice just so you don't risk anything.
Yes,
but,
and
you know, you might
yeah, I mean, this is a draw, I think. Now, Greg can keep playing with rook e2, right? I mean, if he avoids the queen trade, there's some stuff going on, but Anna could even play h6 at some point just to eliminate the headache of a back rank checkmate, potentially, especially in time pressure. That's sometimes a good idea.
So she plays b6 just to make one fewer pawn on the 7th rank over on the queen side, and that way she can back up with queen c7 or rook c7 type moves.
But she's got to be careful because something like queen d4 meets with queen takes c8. That's why I think h6 could be a prophylactic move for the future. Yeah.
It's a good move. You're absolutely right that there's some kind of queen sack for a back rank checkmate was in the air.
Now rook e7, I guess, makes sense, which is what he does. And Anna's got to find, she's got to tame this little fire that's going on with the rook on e7.
Watch out, queen f6 will trade the queens but loses the a7 punch. Wow, I don't know about that move.
Rook f7 now.
Rook f7. Rook f7 for sure, but then maybe there's rook back to d8 or something.
Greg weakens.
Wait, no, there was rook f7, there was rook takes f2, and the e1 rook maybe,
again, that
like
defense.
I don't know if it worked, but it looked interesting.
Rook a2, now Anna picks off the pawn and defends a7.
Okay, queen g5.
Now rook a1 and queen f4.
Oh, you're right.
Queen e7 or rook e1, either move.
I like
now,
a5.
This
a5.
Is hard to win, of course. But rook e7 now.
Rook e7. Nope, this is not going to be winning. She can make a draw because of the weakness of the white king. Queen, don't go queen d4. I just have to blunder my queen. Just check a bunch of times.
Perpetually, yeah.
Wait, can you play rook c8? Could you play rook c8 or something? Rook a8.
There's rook a7.
And then I trade rooks and I have an outside pass pawn.
Yeah, but what about rook c8? I like that move. How do you defend against rook c1 there?
I don't know. But it looked like it was about to be a struggle for Greg. Of course, with 4 seconds on your clock, you're just trying to figure out how do I not blunder? How do I make a move there? But a move like rook to a8 or rook to c8 going for the back rank checkmate.
Yes.
That actually really could have been a huge victory for Anna there. Kudos to both of them because Greg, you know, he made a few mistakes there. He was playing for a win, and Anna fended him off really well, and then actually won a pawn. And then Greg was able to get enough counterplay and hold her off. So really back and forth affair in that game just now. Indeed,
and they're repeating that line. And we talked about this in the Alina against Kristoff match, where you know, you have this dilemma where you prepare these openings before the match and your opponent shows something very strong. By the way, a4 there had to be considered for black, or am I missing something?
a4 should always be considered.
I mean, after rook b1, a4 permanently stops the effectiveness of b3, and knight takes a4, then the e4 pawn will hang at the end of the line.
Yep.
I'm not sure why Greg is so keen on allowing b4. I always feel like that's, well, I guess here there's knight takes b4. But still, anyways, we'll see how this unfolds.
You were talking about that earlier, and I just want to show that on the board. A b4, knight takes b4. Because the rook on a1 is under attack, the rook on b1 is tied to it. So rook takes b4 doesn't work out with that rook hanging down on the first rank.
Wow, h5. Bold decision by Greg. He's trying to mix things up.
He's trying to go full alpha zero.
Yeah, but there's no attack here. I mean, he's pushing one pawn,
but you know, maybe you don't need the attack. G6, king G7, rook H8, kind of.
Right.
You always say this: the threat is strong in the execution. Perhaps that's what he's looking for.
Yeah, I mean, okay, plays CD, trying to open up the C file for his rook. So he's trying to play on both flanks. And another idea of H4 is potentially he could play H3. And what that accomplishes is it deprives the king of the G2 square. So that sets the precedent for potential back rank ideas.
Right.
So in that sense, Robert, I agree with you. Just putting the pawn on H4 already causes, you know, a lot of irritation for white, especially in the time scramble.
And the downside, and I know you were thinking this, but the downside of playing with like H3 is then, especially in endgames, that pawn's a total goner. Because as soon as you put that pawn on H3, I'll drop my bishop to F1, put pawn F3, and eventually go gobble it up. But for the time being, with queens and rooks and heavy pieces on the board, this H3 move is just a spatial grab for black that can discombobulate white's pieces, particularly challenging this bishop on G2 to figure out, do I go to F3 or H1 to protect E4, or can I just reroute the bishop to F1 where it still eyes the H3 pawn?
Yeah, queen d8 played by Greg. I thought rook c4 was an interesting try, both to double the rooks and to potentially access the d4 square. Greg decides on sort of a flexible move, queen d8, potentially the queen coming to b6. Anna's got to be a little bit careful not to overextend herself here. After queen b6, the position starts creaking a little bit.
Although, after queen b6, I might consider taking on h4.
Just eliminating Harry.
And then I can use it myself with an h5.
What about queen d4?
I honestly forgot your queen could just keep venturing into my position like that. You're right. The queen b6, queen to d4 type of maneuver. It is hard to put your queen in the line of a rook, but look at that. A little game of tickle, but now the rook on c1 protects c3. So
yeah, I think the tickle might backfire because attacking b4 was a crucial sort of advantage, but I guess still rook c4 could come into play. So it takes on b4, for example, and then rook c4.
So
but the knight, no, that doesn't work.
After a b4, do you take with the knight or with the pawn?
Maybe taking with the knight's a better idea, but because now rook c4, definitely, I feel like, at least from a practical standpoint, unpleasant. Okay, knight c7, he wants to go knight b5, knight c4.
Mm-hmm. And trading some of these pieces, especially getting the b5 square for the bishop. We've seen a game where Greg from the white side was left with a light square bishop against a good knight. If you can imagine the knights getting traded on the square and the bishop taking on d3, this bishop on f3 doesn't really have great diagonals to work with. So that's just something to keep in the back of your mind.
Yeah, and that's the problem with a potential queenside attack is if it doesn't work out, white is left with a lot of sort of weak spots in the center and on the queen side, and black could use that as access points for his own pieces. And Anna decides, as you pointed out, Robert, to take on h4, which I think is a good idea. But now the problems come in the center, not only on the king side.
But she's protected. Actually, knight g2, knight e3 is scary for black because if I can get my knight to f5, g6 will be met by h5. So white does have counter chance in this position. Queen d8 threatens nothing. You move your knight away, I go pawn h5. She starts with king h1. She has 17 seconds left, Danya. I like this king h1 move because once you move this knight out the way, rook's coming right over to g1. And who's the one being under attack?
Yeah, it's unclear. And I would even consider, it's a radical thing to say, but taking on g5 is not the dumbest idea in the world, and then going knight b6. I understand that black corrects white's pawn structure, and then h4 definitely backfired. But, sometimes queen trades in this position can be surprisingly effective because it's harder for white to protect the weaknesses on the center and on the queen side. But we'll see how Greg plays this.
He's spending time here, which I do think is smart because he has so many options, and black's position at first glance looks very nice. He does take and plays knight b6. So Danya, you proved correct. Bishop g4, I like that move. But the issue is the a file is just as good for black as the c file. So rook c1,
yes.
Trade on c1, play rook to a2. Oh, bishop c4.
Yeah, strictly speaking, he didn't need to do that because any rook move out of the first range could have been met with rook. That was sick.
Bishop c8 was
rook
there.
Rook a2 now wins a piece.
Yeah, bishop c8, she had that just to distract the knight. Now she lost a piece, and with it, the game.
And we thank Vidit for the raid. Vidit, of course, needs no introduction. Incredible player, and he commentated as well. So thank you for the raid, Vidit.
Thank you, Vidit, for beating me so many times yesterday. It's made me a better commentator. It hasn't hurt my feelings at all. But no, on a serious note, of course, Vidit, thank you for sending us your viewers.
Yeah, and this is not looking good for Anna, but she is being resilient. She's trying every chance she's got. That rook on a7 is trapped, but it's also kind of a bone in black's throat. So, but
b5.
Greg,
b5. She had b5 there.
Oh, and rook takes b7, skewering. Oh yes. My god. Oh, but that didn't work though. b5, bishop b5, or did it?
I think it worked.
It worked. Rook b7 because white was attacking f7 too. Oh, that's a great catch.
And now all of a sudden she's just down a piece, and knight a6 comes and wins the b4 pawn.
Oh my goodness!
Yikes! Had an opportunity there. Now it's clearly Greg Shahade's
Simply
game.
Bishop g6. Yeah. Wow.
Oh. Game over. Greg deserves credit though. He took on g5, played knight b6. He was outplaying her throughout that game, and
he made a lot of practical decisions that sucked up a lot of Anna's time and sort of. There's a certain fatigue you start to feel toward the end of a game when you've had to make a lot of difficult decisions.
Right. And for Anna, can't blame her necessarily for missing b5, but that was that one chance that Greg slipped up and allowed. He was dominating the game pretty much from start to finish there. He outplayed her, but you need to make the most of those opportunities if you're going to win such a hotly contested match as this one is.
Absolutely. At some point, every single chance becomes critical and potentially decisive. So Queen E2, a little bit of a shift from what we've seen with a knight E7, knight C6 line. And I'm trying to figure out who deviated. I think Greg was the one who deviated.
He did. And I think it just goes to show that he's not been very happy with these sort of end game lack of tactical resource positions, because he is a more aggressive player. And as we've seen throughout the match, Greg is fully capable of just outplaying Anna in those type of positions. He just did it last game, but it's not really his preference. And so I think Anna's been smart to continue playing this line. She's already up 15 seconds on the clock in this game. And we're getting a lesson in the black side of the Tarrasch, because I don't like the French, but as far as the French goes, she's been getting pretty good positions.
And exactly. And I'm on the same page in terms of my own experiences with the French, but I also know that Anna has played this basically her whole life, and she's very well prepared. And you can just sense the understanding.
Sorry to say, I was just saying E5, F5. And what about that?
Yeah, that's such an annoying idea, especially given how well coordinated Black's pieces are.
This looks really bad for White.
It actually just does. I agree.
Because I was thinking of E5, F5 before castling. Now that you've castled,
it's especially good because the king is not in danger.
Yeah, E5. What are you going to do? Where are you putting
knight F3, F5,
and then I throw an E4.
I was thinking about C5 in that position, but then Queen takes C5.
Yeah.
And
you're kind of grasping at some straws. Maybe you have some tactics, but
I mean, maybe Bishop B2, the idea of, and that's exactly what she does.
This looks promising. And even if you don't play F5 necessarily, you Bishop C6 and play that way, but F5, you're advancing your pawns.
Those pawns are just like tanks. I mean, it's supported by all of Black's pieces. The king is safe. This is just not looking. I mean, Greg is just not having too much success, even equalizing, to be honest, with White in this line of the Tarrasch. He's the one who's got to be worrying about not just getting crushed out of the opening.
What is he thinking about here? So knight C2 and knight F3 are the two moves, right? There's nothing else? I don't think I'm missing anything.
I don't think there's anything else.
And knight C2 runs the same F5 move. There it is. Anna playing it super quickly. Here's your C5. Good on you predicting that. And what if I just drop my queen anywhere? The E5 pawn is no longer under attack because the bishop is on the file. So queen C7 to go to B8 or to D8. Isn't Black just up a pawn?
Yeah, I don't see much. I mean, there's the D file that has to be, Black needs to be very vigilant about like rook A1, bishop C4 ideas.
That's true.
But
don't like queen A5. I was not a fan of that move. But E4?
Knight C4.
Oh,
that's why, and that's exactly why queen A5 is maybe B5 actually. B5 stops knights. All these knight C4 ideas just cuts that out.
Oh, that's very important because rook D1, bishop C4 check was another idea you'd mentioned, but B5 takes away that square. There will still be some tactics with rook D1 and knight C4 ideas anyway, but I like B5. It has to be a good move.
Exactly, and you can combine that with king H8 to, as you pointed out, just to remove even a semblance of possibility. Okay, so E4 is...
She's just going to go queen C7 or something. Oh, not queen C7 because bishop B... No, then...
But the problem now is knight takes D6 followed by bishop C4 and rook A1. All of a sudden, Greg gets this small initiative.
Oh, knight B6 doesn't work because
now rook D1.
Uh-oh. Okay, now bishop B5 for Black. Play bishop B5. There it is.
Very nice.
Anna is being tactically alert here. I mean, it was a bit suspicious. It didn't look very good, if we're being honest. But now that bishop B5 is on the board, you're like, okay, I like Black again. Because you just want to chop on C4 and play queen E5. The queens are not traded on C4. So bishop takes C4 now is definitely the move. Unless you want to play queen E6.
Queen E6 is what I thought, actually. Yeah, rook takes D6, queen takes D6.
That's pretty funny.
And that's what she does. Wow. Again, total tactical... I wanted to say locks in this, but I would play A4 with White and then play B takes C4, bishop B3. I think that diagonal, Greg has to open that diagonal to get any sort of counterplay. But it's all very speculative.
Yeah, your king f8 move. Oh, sorry, king f. I'm doing what you're doing. You say these moves sometimes with the wrong square. I said king f8 when I meant king h8. So of course, bishop b3 is one threat. Rook takes b7 is the other.
Oh my god!
No! Oh my gosh! She blundered her queen.
Oh no!
Oh, she just simply left her queen on the diagonal, and bishop b3 happened.
And I think. Oh no! I think she saw it maybe out of the corner of her eye, but somehow she thought this defended against it.
She grimaced. You could just see the pain because this is a tied match, and she was outplaying Greg. And to blunder your queen in one move like that is just, oh,
yeah. And this game was so well played. She had calculated very accurately in several critical moments. And the moment you let your guard down, that's just rook takes b7 here, just finishes it, among other things.
Mm-hmm. Take this knight, hitting.
And then queen d5 coming back for the bishop as well.
Wow.
That is unfortunate.
So she should probably, regroup, maybe spend the rest of this game just getting into a better mental state and then resign and get to the next game, because I do think her chances are better in the 3-minute portion than the bullet. Maybe she'll surprise us in the bullet. And Greg, he found those resources you were talking about, a4, rook b1, bishop b3 ideas. It just shouldn't have worked out the way it did.
Right. I mean, I suppose he caused enough disturbances in the position, but, this just happens when the stakes are high. You just have blind spots like this. I mean, who knows whether Anna hallucinated or she just missed it, but these things just happen. I mean, that's just part and parcel of such a high stakes match. And like you said, Robert, critical to regroup here. She can't tilt and go down one more game, especially with white. This is a very, very important game, actually.
Yes. And they keep repeating the same lines. So we're not getting the adventurousness we see in other matches. And she hasn't pushed her pawn to e4 yet. So this is one of the differences that we're seeing thus far. So she's saying, I don't need to play e4. My bishop on g2 is still open in the case of c6. b4 does not work. It still hangs this pawn here. So, I mean, actually, it kind of works in the sense you regain the b7 pawn. But b4, the point is that there's this tactic, knight b4, with the rook on a1 needing...
It's actually kind of annoying. Maybe rook a2 at some point, but again, a4 needs to be reckoned with consistently.
So she plays b3.
Makes sense. I mean, she's basically eliminating the possibility of a4 because that's now always met with b4.
Right. And is she going to play rook a2? I'm not too worried about c6. Maybe I should be a little more worried, but I'm not. Knight d2 to e4 is another idea that is quite standard because your knight on d2 is not really doing anything. Another idea is knight f1, knight e3, reinforcing the d5 pawn in the case of c6, but also the f5 square. So I like knight d2 to e4 just to start trying to trade some pieces. For example, knight e4 takes bishop e4. You're going to go bishop f5. Can't draw arrows, right? And continue trading a little bit and then opening up the queen side.
Right. Yeah, I mean, rook a2, yeah. I mean, I've been thinking about this idea for a while, but the problem is Anna's a little bit slower to play b4 than in the previous game. So once again, she's got to be careful that Greg doesn't get that activity as he did, in the game 2 games ago. He gets the c file opened, he gets that queen on b6. I would just play maybe just e4 and then.
I don't really want to play e4.
Against CD was my idea, but again, that's not a favorable pawn structure imbalance for white.
And queen d1 is, I think I like more than e4 because I like the bishop having open access in the diagonal. And if you ever take on d5, then you're left with this d6 pawn that's backward and potentially weak. So, c d5, knight d5, knight d5, bishop d5, then I can follow up with knight e4 and maybe try to get my knight back to this d5 square via e4, c3, or f1 to e3.
Yeah, exactly.
Bishop f5, trying to...
provoke e4, actually. And then maybe even bishop g4 to provoke an additional f3.
I would play rook c1 and then knight f1 to e3. So bishop f5 does attack my rook, but I'm not playing for b4 anymore. I want to play knight f1, knight e3.
Exactly. And again, it's important to regroup in terms of b4 is the main plan in these positions. Anna decides on knight e4. Which could be good if she can retain the central control. So knight takes e4, I guess bishop takes, just to get as many pieces out of the center as possible.
Yep, and the d6 pawn still feels a little bit vulnerable.
Okay, knight c5. Of course, knight takes c5, there's bishop takes rook.
Yep. Don't want to allow that.
Yeah, probably knight f6 is forced.
Knight f6 looks like it.
And then e4. And maybe e4 and b4.
Now you've accomplished that. She can take on c6, by the way. There are some lines where you can take on c6 here.
Yeah.
Because you start chopping down the diagonal with this bishop on g2 and get some material. So d takes c6 could be an inclusion that she's considering, or rook c1, so she can take on c6 in the future with rook d2 to follow.
Now a4 is interesting with the idea of b4, knight b3, but we saw this when Greg played h4 and Hannah eventually took. That didn't work out for her, but it's not always a bad idea to double these pawns because then you get the b file. So a decision to be made here for Greg. I would actually take some time to think. He goes e4. I like that decision from a practical standpoint, although b4 has to be calculated.
Yeah, it always has to be calculated. And so does d takes c6 with rook d2 to follow.
Indeed. But Anna running so low on time here.
She plays your move. Okay. And now d takes c6. Good move.
Yep.
But the problem is queen a4, this knight c7 kind of stuff, she just plays knight b4.
Yeah.
Oh, wrong square. Knight b4.
Yeah, knight b4 was more effective. Even bc first, right? And then knight b4 also very strong. But then queen b2.
But then you still get knight c3, knight d5 here. Knight d5. Ignore
knight
the pawn.
Knight d5 and c. Yeah.
Watch out for e7. Queen b2 is something active. Okay, the queen's.
I would move my king to prepare bishop b6 here. I would just play king h8 here just to eliminate that headache. Rook b8. But
B6?
now you can't go bishop e6.
Knight e7, knight
c6.
c6. She found it. She found it.
She saw that she was lying in wait.
Oh, that is devious.
Oh, that is just all of these forks. And Greg thought he was out of the woods after rook b8, but he wasn't. There was another fork.
That is devious.
Oh,
my gosh. She had this very quick tactical vision there. Rook takes c5. Okay. She could have taken.
Did you see the speed with which she had that roasting like my coffee that I've forgotten to? That's been just roasting for a long time.
Oh, man, that was something.
And a huge win for Anna, equalizing the match score. That was, I'm not going to go as far as to say that was a must win, but that was a must win. And she won.
Yes.
And she delivered.
And there's no
let's
attack.
not bury him yet, but
queen d3 check, rook takes b3. Bishop b4 check probably is going to be some mate. Bishop takes g6. Oh, I'm getting fancy.
GF.
Yeah, well, that move was a little strange. I guess GF, you're going to play queen d3 here.
Yeah. Or the bishop c3. I mean, I guess she's just trying to weaken. And rook f1 next.
Yeah, there's no risk. As long as you keep your rook on the first rank, and even if your rook leaves the first rank, there's probably still no risk, but you just want to keep your king safe. That's really...
Yeah, but rook f1, knight d2, and there's
rook takes
amazingly...
F5.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. That's what you have to do if you're Greg.
I just really hope I didn't jinx. I mean, I started talking about it as if it was over, but she plays rook takes f5.
Yep. Don't blunder an eventual queen a1, queen f1 mate when the king gets to g2. So even if you win the e3 pawn, it's still a checkmate. So
yes.
You have to be very careful here. But
don't take e3, Anna.
Queen d8, queen d4.
Yeah, but you can't take... Oh, you cannot take e3. You get mated.
Yeah, don't take e3. Oh, but that's not good. King...
Oh, no. Queen d8. Oh,
queen
my
D8.
goodness.
And then... No, it's me.
No, they blows the win.
Oh, my God. She had it covered.
God.
That was actually
brilliant. That
brilliant.
was amazing. That was so... Oh, knight f3, Robert.
I know. I just saw it. I just saw it in the corner of my eye. We have to look at this game.
Oh, my God. That is
as we go into the next game, we're pulling up the analysis board because there was a win for black here. The move knight to f3 check. Hits the king. Hits the queen. You have to take the knight. There's a queen f2 check. King h1 only move. And queen f1 is check and mate. So we were talking about how the king was in trouble. Greg goes for the back rank check to try to get to queen f1 because, of course, he wants to get to one of these squares and mate on f1. But the queen and the bishop importantly cover the first rank as she threatens queen h8 check. He misses knight f3 check, which honestly could have almost ended the match, giving him a 2-game lead. And as we have been saying, he is very likely the better of the two in bullet. But right now, we have a tied match. We're in an end game. Sorry for missing the opening, but we had to have an instant replay. Anna Zatonskih with the black pieces once again looking fine out of the opening in this French defense.
Yeah, and I mean, why is knight f3 so hard to see? Because you've trained your mind on only looking for that back rank mate, and all of a sudden there's this idea that basically comes out of the blue, but a beautiful mate. And I don't think Greg realizes that he's missed it. If he did, he'd be even more tilted. But again, yeah, Anna getting a great position once again. Those pawns on E5 and F5 are going to be in Greg's nightmares today.
Rook E1 loses a piece here, right?
Yeah. Wow.
So he had to do something like this. E4 still looks good.
Yes, it does.
Just taking and playing bishop C4 because the knight can't really move very easily without the A2 pawn falling. And I'm not going full Fischer, but if you go knight D2, I will take your pawn on A2, I think.
Yeah, and the bishop is in no danger for a long time. You can excavate it. You can take your time, basically.
She plays a calmer approach, B6, taking away forward jumps from this knight. I don't mind this move at all. She's shown great endgame technique. Black is way more active. Just look at the bishop on B5 compared to this bishop on D1.
Yeah.
So Anna should be happy about the way this game has gone. If you trade the bishops on E2, why would you allow knight D5 with check? That was probably not a good
now
decision.
the king has to go back and
knight F4. G3
and then knight E6, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just trying to poke and prod and create more weakness. I like your bishop F1 move too. I could hear you about to say that.
Mm-hmm.
But she plays G5. She's gaining space.
No, this is definitely good for black.
If bishop E2, I chop knight B4 maybe, but then C3, my knight might get trapped on A2 if I get too adventurous. I'm just trying to see if I can start forking you and winning material. He's afraid of that, which is why he went knight C1. So
yeah, I guess he wants to play maybe B3 and C4 at some point.
Yeah, I'm thinking bishop F1 or F4 followed by knight E3.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it seems like Anna's always getting the better pawn majority, whether it's on the queen side or on the king side. Her pawn majority always seems to be the one that's more mobile. And here bishop F1 is interesting, just sending the bishop to F1 before white plays C4. But it's not necessary. Bishop C6 followed by knight F4 is also perfectly good. I like that. Or starting with knight F4, but the point is don't walk into this fork. And I like her move A5. And the reason why I like that is because bishop E2 would have forced the bishop exchange with a pawn on E6, on A6. But after A5, the bishop can move away without hanging a pawn. Look at her go. Knight E6. Oh my gosh. Total mastery with the minor pieces.
King C5, by the way, is a big threat with, before knight to D3, because the king could walk into the queen side. E4 should certainly be considered. She plays knight D4, which is better.
Now King E3, though.
King E3, is there knight takes F3 kind of stuff or no?
That's a good question. There might be. That has to be calculated.
EF, GF, G4.
Yep.
Try to get H5, H4, try to push an outside pass pawn.
That's actually pretty devastating positionally speaking, because H5, H4, G3 takes an H3, and Anna can do that and can execute that in her sleep. I mean, she knows these structures so well.
Mm-hmm. She can also consider taking on F4, and the point is that her pawn is a kind of outside pass pawn, and so the white king will be distracted to it, but G4, of course, is the better move. But the essential point is that white is distracted trying to stop these pawns. And if the white king, say, goes over to F2 somehow, the black king would love to walk into the queen side because there are many pawns that are vulnerable there.
Yeah. Now, for Greg, you've got to bank on piece activity here. Now, maybe A3 and B4, but I don't know if he has time to do that, given how quickly H5, H4, G3 happens on the board.
Don't play bishop E4. You hang the G4 pawn.
Right. Good point.
So important not to blunder that. Here, anything takes G4. The pawn on F5 is overloaded, protecting the bishop on E4. So let's see. Greg plays 95. Anna thinks bishop. Well, what happens if I take your bishop? Is black afraid of that? I guess the answer is no, because she has this outside pass pawn. Danya, I mean, knight G7. I know it's a bit passive for now, but if knight C6, king C6, I'm going to go H4.
Yeah.
And my king will go up to C5 or back over the king side, and then I'm going to push a pass pawn through.
That is true.
Okay,
yeah,
now I just move my bishop somewhere. Yep, bishop E8.
Okay, but now A3. But then knight E6.
I always have knight E6, so H4. Okay, wait, how are you going to stop my pawn, by the way?
Well, how are you going to push? Are you going to play H3 and then G3?
You got it. I'm going to push H3 first and then try to spring G3 through. And C5 check looks good in theory, but it actually puts the pawn unprotected. It's protected for now. Take. And when you get knight E6 check, the king will have to make a decision. Do I protect f4 or do I protect c5?
But first of all, g3. I mean, maybe bishop b3 trying to... bishop b3 might stop both. Okay, king e3 is played, but now g3, right?
g3.
Oh,
just
it just
g3.
wins. Knight f3 is forced.
Yeah,
but knight f3, it's not over yet.
But I can even go g2 there.
But there, king f2?
Maybe you just get back in time. So
yeah, and then knight g5.
I have bishop h5, bishop g4, which is actually super.
Knight g. Oh, that's a good move.
Uh-oh. Is this turning around?
Yeah, I think it is. Bishop f5 also.
Oh, no. So she needs to somehow...
It seemed like she did everything right, but I mean, it's just bit off a little bit more than she could chew.
So she needs to sacrifice her piece for the remaining kingside pawn somehow. And then, okay, so this is getting close. Move. Are you sure? Just take king f2?
Yeah, king c5, king g2. What do you make of that endgame? And it's got to be winning for white, even practically speaking.
It looks winning.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that would be a devastating loss. And if they finish soon, they will have one more game in this time control.
Although that's not guaranteed. There's a little bit less than 2 minutes, so they probably will finish.
Yeah, because Anna doesn't have much time, and the position's not looking very good. King g4.
King g4, yeah, total domination, and then h4.
If you're
such a good positional effort by Anna, but just the tactics didn't quite work out, and that's how it is in chess sometimes.
And if you're Anna, you should probably just resign soon.
Knight h5 also wins.
King f5, h4, very importantly, and the king comes to g6 after king takes here. So she's gonna resign. She'll get one more game in the 3-minute portion. That is she was the one in control from start to finish in this game, and then she lost. So that is not a good feeling. But she needs to get this one, go into the bullet tied, or at the very worst, draw this one and go down one game, because you can't afford to lose 2 games in a row, especially after the game she just played. Yeah,
and she's got the white pieces. Now Greg mixing it up with this b5 line, which is actually quite fashionable. It's not beyond the pale or anything. Knight a6. Now b4 is usually the way a4 is met.
Right.
And you get this very complicated sort of semi-positional struggle, and we'll see how this unfolds. But in general, I like this approach from Greg. But c4 is an interesting move as well. Now Anna's kind of preparing d5.
So that's why he captured, so d5 wouldn't happen. And you look at the queen side, right? This pawn on b4 is going to be very hard to attack. And there's this b5 square that white might want to try to use, but black hasn't pushed this a pawn, so a6 will be an option. And bishop is coming to b2, going on to a long diagonal. d5, I mean, I would certainly consider that move.
Definitely.
But then knight c6.
Yeah, I thought about it, but then queen, d. You got to find the right square for the queen. Knight c6, queen d6, though, I think. Yeah. So start with knight d2. Just protect c4. Right. That's a little bit close with that d file, but I don't see a way for black to exploit it.
And this knight on a6 is pretty awkward. And that's what Anna's going to hope to play against, is if this knight could just like move up a square to a5, then there are threats on the b3 and c4. But for now, this knight on a6 is not a very good piece.
Right.
Knight b5 here. Just attack this knight on f6.
And then I was thinking maybe, well, d4, there's knight f3, and that pawn on d4 gets very loose. Yeah. I was just trying to find a way to kind of trap that knight on b5, but I don't think that's possible.
Yeah, you'd have to go knight to b8 and then hope that my knight will never find a way out, but it does feel a little suspicious. So Anna thinking here. Also, this is the final game officially. So...
And it's not that comebacks cannot be made in bullet, but as we pointed out, the lower the time control, I think Greg's chances rise. So Anna's got to be thinking in the back of her head that equalizing, it just sounds so different. Matches equal going to the bullet versus -2.
And she plays e3, a calmer move. She actually could have taken on d5 because that would have given her the c4 square for her knight, but she's probably just like queen f3 here. And queen f3, then maybe take on d5 at the right time, which either frees up the f5 square, which she takes right away, or the c4 square. You take with a knight, here comes knight e.
But now the c3 square is very annoying. Queen b7.
Yep. Then queen f3.
Right.
We're fighting each other for very similar ideas.
Right, for control of all of these squares. Yeah, queen b7. Queen f3 is a very good move. Obviously not knight a5 due to a double check on f4.
Or on E3 is probably better, but same
Well,
idea.
F4 is also mate on G2.
Oh, you're right. I got greedy.
But so is E3, I guess.
Yours is a faster checkmate.
Well,
just rook A to C1 here. I like White's position.
I'm going to tell my grandkids about the time I once found a better move than Robert has.
I don't think it's a one-time thing. Don't sell yourself short. But rook FD1, where's that queen going?
Rook A C1 now? Yeah, that queen is just running around aimlessly.
Knight
White's
D5
queen on...
to go to C6 as well.
You want to go to C6. Yeah, that's another queen E8 there maybe, but there maybe knight B5 has to be considered. Again, the time situation beginning to be a little bit bothersome, Anna.
Knight F5. She's thinking about knight F5.
Uh-huh. Ah. Very nice. Very nice. But
she's definitely considering this move right now, because if you take on F5, which looks like a free piece, there it is.
She does it. Wow.
I mean, Anna's a great endgame player. The biggest problem I see with this is the more pieces you trade, if you free up that C5 square for the black knight, B3 is going to be a weakness in the long run. So that's what I'm looking at from black's point of view. But from white's point of view, you've just given up your knight to ruin the pawn structure for black and then take on D5, which also looks to give you control over this D file while the F5 pawn remains weak.
Yeah, by the way, black could have tried queen G5 instead of taking the knight, but it was very speculative at best. Now after G6, I guess rook D1, white's also got this domination in terms of piece placement. So black could also just get checkmated here. Queen E6.
Rook D1.
Yeah. Yeah, and that control over the D file is crucial. Maybe their black should take and go bishop F8, trying to get a knight to C5. But white's got bishop D4 at any point, just reinforcing her control over that square.
And F5 is hanging, and if you put your knight, there it is. If you ever put that knight C5, white can retreat knight to D2 in a lot of lines, or knight to A5.
Right, it's really not the end of the world.
Knight A5 is actually a really annoying defensive and aggressive move at the same time. So if you take on E6, F takes E6, rook D7, then comes knight C5, you take A7, you give up B3. I'm not sure. It looks to be like a good exchange for black, but that A pawn could become dangerous because white's rook is so active.
Right. And Anna's just trying to make the most of it. There's a lot of tempting options. She does decide to take queens.
And rook two. Knight A5.
Knight A5.
That was tricky move order.
But now knight E4.
But then rook D7.
Rook C2.
Ah.
It's annoying. And maybe knight D4, rook E2 is not the end of the world, but I feel like it's white's no longer even better.
Yeah, this isn't exactly what you wanted, but she's sort of tricky to get her knight to A5 without allowing rook C5.
Right.
To start, but...
This is a good move. Bishop E7 with several ideas. Bishop D8 being one of them.
Rook D2. Ooh, I don't like the rook on C2 because bishop F6. But I thought
even rook D8 here, but...
you're trying to... Well, rook D8, knight C6.
Knight C6, right.
Here, let's... Knight C4. I was thinking bishop takes C3, honestly, in some variations, but...
I guess he wants bishop F6 or knight
Bishop
D5.
D4.
Okay.
Bishop D4!
Now rook C4 is interesting.
Exactly what I was thinking. I don't think it...
It's not overwhelming because, at the end, rook C, you've got to be careful when you don't have any more rooks.
Right.
But I would be safer with Greg. I'd play bishop F6 maybe. I don't know.
Okay, now bishop D4. Or E4. Actually, that's
E4 is a good move. Yeah, knight C3.
Can you take that thing and just go rook C2?
Now knight E4, though. Knight E4 is very unpleasant.
Bishop D4.
Yep.
And then rook A2. But you have knight C5 at the end. So rook C7, bishop
It's percolating. Something's going to happen.
What? I wasn't expecting
now even
that.
rook A7, rook A4. And I mean...
Rook A2. Oh, she had rook A2 there.
Oh, wow.
Uh-oh. Now B3. Okay, king up.
Yeah,
G4.
but even bishop F6 or king E8.
Yeah, this is not going on his way right now. Knight D4, this is E5, and then rook
Knight
A2.
D7, there's even maybe rook A2, but bishop B4, rook B2, hanging by a thread. Oh, now B2.
Yeah, that's not good.
Oh, that is unfortunate.
That's a losing effort here. Rook A1.
Rook A1 ends it. No way to stop her motion.
Yep. Wow. Well, Greg Shahade has showed nerves of steel in those final two games.
Yeah, he has.
He was tied there. IM Zatonskih was the favorite in that end game in the penultimate game of the 3+1 time control. Instead, it's Greg Shahade who not only wins that one, but wins the final one. This game is about to be aborted. It's going to be canceled because We are going to take a short break, and when we return, we get into the bullet time control, where anything can happen, but it does feel like Greg Shahade, the favorite, both on the scoreboard and in bullet chess. And we are back heading into the bullet portion. Greg Shahade is a 2-game lead over IM Zatonskih. And we're going to give a reminder to everybody. There's a state of Chess.com where Danny Wrench will talk about all the things happening at the website and company. And that will be on April 28th at 12 p.m. Pacific. So for those of you who like hearing Danny talk into the abyss, it's your opportunity to hear everything that he has to say, but it's a great opportunity to learn about the site and all of the offerings and the happenings there. And we also have other events that don't just include Danny, some better things, if you will. Premium arenas, where members of Chess.com, premium members, can play Blitz for hours on end. 3-0 Blitz. They can compete for prizes, streaming and non-streaming prizes. And of course, as we saw yesterday, Titled Tuesday. Well, Danya, I don't know how you did. Did you play yesterday?
I did not. Unfortunately, I just had too much to do. But I was watching it out of the corner of my eye, and it's happening every Tuesday. It's an amazing tournament. And even if you don't realistically have many chances to win, it's a great opportunity. If you're a national master, anybody titled to play some of the absolute greats, those tournaments are stacked. Did you play, Robert?
Well, I'm glad you sound a little bit pointed about even if you don't have a chance to win, because that sounds like me. I started 4-0 and then I lost to 2 strong GMs and I was like, can't do this anymore. I'm going to just do other things. But it was fun. I had a good time. I was actually watching Vida Gujarathi's stream as he tied for second place. He drew Hikaru Nakamura in the final round. So it was a fun Title Tuesday indeed. But speaking of fun, Danya, we've got a fun bullet portion ahead of us. Greg with the 2-game lead over IM Zatonskih. What's your final prediction after the bullet?
I feel like, obviously Greg is on the cusp of dealing a decisive blow here in the first. I really think, and I'm not saying anything original here, but the first couple of minutes are going to be critical. The first couple of games, Anna's got to reduce this lead. If Greg starts by winning 2 games, that lead skyrockets to 4, and that's essentially going to be all she wrote. And so even though it's 25 minutes long, Anna's got to just hunker down, play quickly, play confidently, and she's got to make a statement here in the first game or the first 2 games. And
we've seen Greg play B3 in this bullet game, so he's not going with the French anymore. He didn't like the positions he had, or maybe this was his idea the whole time. When you play bullet, play the B3 move, just get quick development. He has a full minute on his clock. Anna, to her credit, still at 55 seconds, but now taking her first think. The structure is one where there's a lot of tension on the C4 square, not to mention B5 and D5, but neither side blinking. Danya, first glance at this opening, whose position do you prefer?
I like white here. I play this myself with white. White is a little bit cramped, but as we've seen in this match, black can get overextended. Now queen B1, queen A1 is a very typical idea in these positions. Attacking E5, white's playing bunker chess. White's hunkering down, waiting for Anna to kind of flinch. On the other hand, Greg can just get crushed. If he doesn't move a piece past the 3rd rank here, he's playing with some serious fire. At the same time, I like this as a bullet strategy because black has to burn a lot of time, kind of controlling all of the reaches of his kingdom. What do you think about this, Robert?
No, I like your analysis there. H5 is a move I consider for black. Knight F8, Knight E6, something like that. Knight B8 is not a move that I want.
Yeah, now Knight F3, just massaging the pawn. Greg doubling on the C file. I like what he's doing here. His moves are relatively natural and easy.
Why would Knight B8 be played before E4? I don't really understand that.
I don't either, because I like E4, but now that Knight jumps to C5.
Yep.
Oh, look at Bishop G7, Knight C5. This is what Anna would dream of having with white.
Totally. And it doesn't really make sense why that knight's on B8, because knight D7 would have stopped that very piece from heading into C5. And now knight D7 drops the A6 pawn. She's super passive.
Now knight E4, rook D2. Everything is so natural. And look at all of white's pieces just opening up.
Yes. And it's one of these positions where it's very frustrating if you don't end up winning this game, because look at the quality, or I say lack thereof, of black's. They're moving so quickly I can't get all the highlights in.
Oh my goodness.
All of these pieces on the queen side are terrible for black.
Knight G5 was actually an interesting move. Knight G3 too. But now rook D8, and Anna's still hanging by a thread here. She needs to get as many pieces off the board as possible. The problem is that's not even helping, because even with minor pieces, it's total domination for white.
A5.
Knight G5 now.
You need some kind of A5. What?
Whoa!
Queen takes it at 96.
That's beautiful.
Ooh, nice tactical vision.
Beautiful tactic.
Greg.
And knight takes D8, and that knight gets out through C6 too, snapping off another pawn. While that rook takes D8 wins another piece.
Yep. Oh, she pre-moved King E7.
Not that it helped, but
Yeah, it was losing anyway, but she thought that the knight would take on d8 and she would trap the knight there, but after rook takes d8, the minor pieces were lost anyway. So let's see how Anna does with the white pieces. That was a fine opening for Anna. Just these knight b8 moves was a little bit too slow in her approach, too cautious. And well, now she's maybe throwing caution into the wind because
back against the wall here. Yeah.
This position we've seen way too many times today. I've lost count. B4 early, rook A to B1.
We keep fast forwarding in this position. First in the 5-minute section, then in the 3-minute.
Maybe that's what you need to do, Danya, is rook A to B1 in these future lines instead of rook F to B1. Because somehow this like tangled queen side with the rook hanging on A1 has not been doing her any favors, but she's moving very quickly to B5.
And she's got great instincts in these positions, and she's got to follow them, which is exactly what she's doing.
Yeah.
I don't like Greg's choice of repeating this, honestly. I like what he was doing with white. Ooh, B6.
B6. Oh my gosh.
Oh, this is he. She's also got to be careful, right? Or rook queen E3.
Queen E3 or rook A to B1. I mean, that pawn is just lodged in there.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. And C5 too.
Knight takes C5. Thank you.
Queen C5.
So knight 8.
Queen takes A3. This gets a little bit iffy.
Queen D4. Queen D4 after Queen D4.
Nice. What a centralizing move.
Okay, she
Queen
doesn't
D4
find
is also good here.
So she goes back.
Oh, but she's losing the grab. I mean,
knight takes C6. Knight takes C6. Take
yeah, but then but B8 queen, I play knight B8 and B1 is hanging.
Oh, you're right. You're so right.
She dropped a piece. She dropped a piece. Oh no.
She's also up so much time. So like this is the thing is because she played so slowly the last game, now she's moving extremely quickly to compensate for that. But she needed to spend more time in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe Anna didn't realize how dominating her position was. Now knight takes B7 or knight B3 and rook D8. I mean, this just doesn't look even salvageable for white.
F6, just play F6.
Yeah, you got to try. Now knight takes F5.
Okay, she's down a full piece and with no compensation.
Yeah, and a pawn too. Yeah, I mean, G6 here.
She's moving more quickly than I've anticipated, but unfortunately she just lost the thread of this game. H5 is a move that you sometimes regret by opening up your king, but it's, everything is good when you're up a full piece.
Yeah, everything's defended. You can literally close your eyes and push the pawn. Watch
out for some kind of mate on H8 though. So like Queen C1, Queen A1. Oh, speaking of, Queen B8. Watch out, Rook H8. I think you're getting.
Unfortunately, still King is pretty safe here, but
Rook H. Yeah,
Rook H5.
King H2, only move.
Now the second act of the
Queen C3.
Yeah, and you got it. Queen takes A3.
Okay.
Takes A3. Now Zatonskih giving chance. Knight takes H4. Queen E1 was winning, by the way.
Yep. But we don't like winning moves. Queen A8. Okay, now it's got to be a mate. Knight F3, Rook G1.
Where's Knight E1, Queen E2.
But this king is not safe. Rook G8 check. Rook G8. Oh gosh.
King
Queen
F6.
D8 check. Oh, King D8. King F6 is Queen D8.
F4, King G4 though.
Queen D8. G4. Oh, where's the mate?
King F3. Oh man, King F3.
Queen E3's mate. Oh my gosh, it's almost mate.
That was mate in one.
That was mate in one. You're right. It was mate in one.
Oh
Queen
my!
D8.
I can't look at this. She had mate in one.
And she has so much time on her clock. She's moving too quickly.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, she had mate in one. Now Greg mates King H3. And Rook H2 is mate.
Rook H2, and then King F1, Queen E1. Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, I'm going to pull up this analysis.
We got to get, but I mean, first of all, what a recovery by Anna, what resilience, but Queen H4 mate, she had 30 seconds.
I'm bringing up the analysis board just so we can get the live game as well as this this position here where she had a checkmate in one move right here with Queen H4 checkmates that king. So just mate in one, missed. But without further ado, let's go back to the live game. It's Anna with the black pieces. I like her position. This B3 stuff.
Oh, yeah, Greg is, wow. This is just dominating D5.
Yep. Okay, bishop h5 should also be good, hitting the knight on e2.
She's just chiseling her way into white's position. That h file too can be exploited at some point.
Bishop g4, queen f7, queen h5, for instance. Okay, I don't know. She's playing on the queen side, which actually gives white some counterplay sometimes. But there's queen f7.
It's this alpha. I think it's the alpha zero syndrome when you think you're playing creative chess, but you're actually just doing total total garbage, to be honest. If I may roast Greg a little bit here.
Oh, this looks terrible. I mean, it's attack F4. Just play F4 in the near future. Maybe not yet.
Queen H1 also, yeah.
But I mean, you can't even take on F3, or do I take on
F3 and Queen H1, by the way, is also interesting.
Yeah, just kind of
entombing ways.
This looks so. Even Bishop takes D4 ideas at some moment. Wait, Queen H1.
Black is also playing King F7, Rook H8, and Queen takes F1 and Rook H1.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
and the funniest thing is Black can go out to dinner. Well, you can't go out to dinner these days, but Black is all the time in the world, and Queen takes C4, still Queen takes F1.
There it is. What a mate.
King D2. It's not over yet.
Queen E2?
It's not over yet, Josh. King C3.
You're right. Somehow it's not mate. Do you go B5? Like, what do you do here? Knight F6?
B5.
Maybe Knight F6, yeah.
Yeah, simple and smart. Queen F5.
And then B5.
Go to be on F5. No.
I just, for some reason, allowing a check didn't feel right, even if you could go Knight F6 after the check. But B5, B4 is checkmate.
Filthy. And that was very well played by Anna, not to take anything away from her. But Greg's opening was complete disaster. B4.
B4, just Queen C4, Queen back to E2. I mean, yeah. Then C5, and I'm just gonna mate you anyway. But
the worst thing is you're up a piece here. Sorry,
it's just amazing that this happened, because I lost a game in Title Tuesday yesterday to Gukesh. The exact same idea, where like Queen takes a knight or a rook or whatever it was and getting checkmated. So I know exactly how it feels. Okay, this game has to be over.
Anna's got to be careful. Like King can tuck itself on C1. I would just play Queen D5 exactly. You just say, I'm up a piece in the endgame. The problem is this sucks up more time. And time is of the essence here in terms of trying to make a comeback. There's still enough time if she finishes this game off quickly.
Right. Just take on B4, play trade.
But now Knight C3, I mean...
Yeah, this is not... Oh, Bishop C3, Knight D5.
Okay,
Knight D5.
Greg's playing well. Rook takes B5.
Yeah, actually,
this is
G4 falls.
To be... Rook G5 and Knight D3. Is Black even better anymore?
Nope.
Oh my goodness. King D2.
Yep. This is how bad things happen to good people.
Yes.
I mean, you lost all your pawns, every single one.
Oh my goodness. I cannot believe this. Rook F8 too. Oh, Greg doesn't even see it. Now Rook F8. Oh my God. Everything's she lost the whole house here.
That's what happens. You let your opponent stay around too long, and then you just suffer a collapse. And Greg is just like, I don't know what happened there. I was dead lost.
That is insane. Yeah. I mean, at some point you just start panicking and you can lose your mind a little bit. You're like, why am I not winning? Why am I not winning? And you panic.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say at this point.
Yeah, 4 points down now, 5 points down, my apologies. And that's all but insurmountable with 15 minutes on the clock.
So this line here, Queen D4 check, King H1, you start trading a lot of things.
Is this theory?
Yes, it's theory. You get the pawn back on C6, but White has the two bishops.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, Bishop B2, Bishop G6, I guess. I mean, that is just, yeah.
Okay, so what's that? So Bishop G6 played. You can always bring your rook up somehow. So if you take on C2, I trade and have a rook C1, the C7 pawn is maybe potential for rook B3 here. If you were going to give up the C2 pawn the first time, you might as well give it up the second time, because you will end up winning the C7 pawn in return.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
I'm just still wrapping my head around the last two games. Queen C4 picks up a piece, I think.
Oh,
oh no.
That's brutal.
That's a brutal fork. And the worst thing is you cannot defend with Rook B4. You cannot defend with Queen D4. There's no protected squares along the fourth rank.
Yep.
That is a nasty fork. And obviously credit to Greg. I think he seized his chance. He noticed when Anna was a little bit, I don't want to say tilted, but maybe a little bit unsettled. And he pounced. He's been very tenacious in bad positions and very decisive in good positions.
Indeed. And now he's out to what, a 6-game lead? Is that right?
Yeah, 6-game is correct. It's 12-6.
It's, I guess because this bullet has been just, all Greg at this point, but it certainly feels closer than the score would indicate.
Absolutely.
We've been going through a bunch of matches this far. Usually the player that wins by a large margin separates themselves early, right, in the 5-minute or the 3-minute. This has been close until the bullet, but we kind of knew this would happen. We were anticipating that the bullet would go Greg's way, even though by play, Anna had 30 seconds left and missed a checkmate. And so it just, proper use of time has kind of eluded Anna in this bullet segment.
That's true. And the thing is, even though Anna's not going to win this match, she does have some absolute masterpieces to be proud of. And I'm sure they'll work their way into some articles. Very, very instructive games in that 5-minute portion. So again, you look at this score, you say, it was a crushing victory, but that's not, representative of the actual narrative of the match, as you point out. Now, knight d5, again, Anna's much better here. Oh, queen g7, though.
And bishop f6.
Yeah, still not bad, but queen h6. I mean, in a bullet game, this is hard to play for black because of the king safety.
Completely agreed.
King safety is everything in bullet.
Rook takes d7, wins on the spot. Okay,
yep.
Nice. Because the bishop on f6 was hanging.
No, knight c5 is super strong on queen d6.
Yep, queen d6 right away. Bishop takes c6 to follow.
Yeah, Greg is not exactly.
Yeah. Anna's fighting in this one.
Rook takes d7 even here is interesting, but
he's retreating a bunch. Knight e5 now.
I mean, I think obviously white can just tread water at this point, but
right.
Still, you wanna be objective to the end.
And black's position is no longer completely busted as it was earlier. Oh, whoa, f4.
Now it is knight d5 wins a queen.
Knight d5. Oh,
man. That is just nasty stuff. And yeah, this has just gone completely out of control. I really think the last game of the 3-minute portion, Robert, that set the tone. I just feel like, that burden of having to make up a 2-point lead or 2-point deficit weighed a little bit on Anna, and combined with the fact that I think Greg's just a better bullet player.
Right. And kudos to Greg, because in the longer time segments, he was really fighting. I mean, it was just a 50-50 battle to that point. And then in that penultimate game of the 3-minute portion, somehow Anna lost what was a very promising endgame. Greg just, he didn't back down. He allowed his opponent, not Anna, to overextend her pawns, and then one by one they fell. So Greg deserves all the credit here. This has been a very close match, and now the score is just running away from Anna, but the score definitely does not indicate the level of play that she's shown. Yeah,
definitely not. It just comes to show that the psychology and the trend of the match plays such a big role in these events. You just cannot take every game as an individual game. It's all part of the total narrative that contributes to how the players are feeling, and that dictates these runs. These runs are huge. When one player gets confident, I feel like that often decides the outcome of the match, as it did here.
Yeah. And this position also looks pretty promising for Anna with the white pieces.
It really does, yeah. Both an attack and a positional advantage here with that square on d4. I would play d4 here with Greg and if I were Greg, and just mix things up.
I guess you don't play d4 because like bishop h6 tactics with the f7 pawn.
Right.
And he stole a pawn in the center. So rook e1, rook e1. I'm looking at some kind of back rank checkmates. Don't see any just yet. h4, nice move. Go to h5. Ooh.
Now d4 is impossible due to queen takes g6. That sets a nice precedent.
Now rook e7.
Oh,
there it is.
Filth right there. Bishop c8 though. Okay, I think maybe something here.
Queen. I don't see anything.
Bishop knight e7, king f8.
And queen c5.
Oh,
queen c5. What a concept. This is the weirdest little maneuver. And the rook is hanging now. So
Greg's going to pretend like he sacrificed that.
Yes, strategic sacrifice. Bishop takes d5.
Knight f4, I think, some minor chances here.
Just bishop e6.
Knight e6. Okay, Greg. I mean, he's a very tricky player. He's always keeping some chances for some sort of trick, and that's what you have to do in bullet. You just can't resign, basically.
Don't play Queen E4 because there was knight H3 checks, but it's G3, which Queen D2,
G5,
then Rook.
I mean, of course, White is winning, but it's going to take a couple more moves. Knight H3 and H4. Yeah.
Yeah, just here it comes.
Uh-oh.
Okay, that's a good move. Queen E3, just shoring up your king.
Yeah. Yeah, the king is very safe now. There's open spaces near the king on F2. Still not quite clear cut, but Rook D2, Queen D4, and White starts to.
Knight
now Knight A. Ooh.
Yeah, one of those checks was going to be painful. Queen F3 check at some moment just to get.
What is going on here? King H5. Amazingly, Black's king is quite safe here.
King F2, maybe? What's happening? Who's better?
Yeah, what is happening right Oh my god.
No.
Oh my
what? Rook H7. Rook H7 check.
Oh my god.
Rook H7.
Holy moly. No,
Rook H7. No.
Every move is a blood.
No. No. Oh my gosh. And somehow.
I think no, 94. Don't miss 90. Oh, 94, Rook E4.
And then King F2. King E1. Don't play A7 because A7. Okay. So, oh my gosh.
I don't.
Danya. No, I'm in pain.
Oh my god. I'm not laughing at the players. It's just
no, that happens.
I mean, there's a queen hanging, and then Greg managed not only to not take his queen, but plunder his own. Oh my god.
That was epic.
What a stretch. I mean, and I feel for, at some point you get tired. And from Greg's side, I understand, he's won the match. He's switched off sort of the intense tactical calculating part of this brain, I suppose. Yeah.
I
oh my God.
Don't really know what to say. Daniel, we both were just
incredulous.
Yeah. I mean, should we pull that game up? No, let's not do that. It hurt too much. Should we pull it up? No, let's not do it. Okay, we're going to pull it up. We're going to bring the analysis board.
Rip the Band-Aid off.
We're going to pull up the analysis board because I don't even remember where it was. Okay, I figured it out.
I'm laughing in pain as well. I'm not laughing at the players. The laughter is a release of the pain of watching that.
Queen E2 gave away the queen for free.
Yeah.
Greg went knight takes G3.
And the queen is also 2 squares away from Black's queen.
Yep, and Rook H7 check would have kicked the king out and then won the queen on G4.
Yep.
Instead, what move was played instead?
Knight G3, blundering Rook H7 again.
Oh, yeah. So, sorry, I skipped ahead. So Knight G3, Queen H2. Now, after Queen H4, there was Rook H7 one more time, but Rook C6 was played. And after E3, we saw the trade, and then White went on to win. So, let's go to the current game. I haven't even taken a single look at it. What is happening? Black is...
Rook D5 ends it, I think, though.
Oh.
Just wins because Queen F1, Rook D1.
Yep. I guess the Rook D5 like Queen takes B4 or something, but it's not good.
Queen D5 also strong because now Rook E7, Bishop B7. I guess Knight B6.
And the game continues somehow, but Rook takes E7, B7's falling because if Rook B8, there's Bishop D6.
Oh, White is also up a pawn and it's going to be up 2 pawns.
Ooh, you're right.
Yeah,
you're good at counting.
This is over Red Rover, as Danny likes to say.
H6 is clever.
Yeah, Bishop C7. Now he's just going to take on B6. Very practical. 3 pass pawns.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know what to say anymore.
Yeah.
That previous game took everything out of me.
It really did take out everything out of me as well. I mean,
I don't know what to say.
That seems like I sometimes play 10-second chess when I've descended to that level of degeneracy, and it looks like one of those games.
Well, I'm just so used to it because yesterday I played a very long match with Vidit, and he just absolutely destroyed me. And I was making just decisions like that where in the heat of the moment, I would just blunder away everything. I was up a rook on move like 5, and I didn't win the game. So these things happen, not just to these players, but to all players. And
yeah, it does. And they're tired. I mean, this takes a lot out of someone. I mean, a match like this, every game has very high stakes. You know, at the end of the day, we try to keep a lighthearted tone, but we're not trying to make fun of the players. They do an amazing job. And all of these matches, this one included, has featured some incredibly high level. And nor am I just saying that to say it. I really believe that they've put in complete effort and entertained us as well.
Yes. And, the match is out of hand, so we're being lighthearted about it. But, I mean, the game of the match to me that stands out was game 3 when Anna outplayed Greg in that really long endgame. The queen and knight versus the queen and bishop. To me, that's the game of the match. And, I think, she is.
Why is he repeating
I don't know. I stopped looking at the board, honestly. You're losing exchange, knight c5, bishop a8, and white's completely winning. But what I was going to say, Danya, is that she holds the number 1 game of the match, in my opinion, and then Greg holds like number 2 through 7. Kind of.
Yes.
And maybe not 2 through 7, it's a little much, but Greg has really controlled some of these games in important moments where things get into a little bit of a tactical melee. And is b7?
Oh, nice.
Nice.
What a move.
Nice. See, Anna's still fighting, coming up with cool tactics here.
I think if Anna maybe was a little more experienced in online chess, she a little bit faster. She's capable of playing, incredible blitz. So I don't know why Greg repeated that line when he can just resign at the end of it. But it doesn't matter at this point.
Yep.
So,
and this is with the 5 versus 12 matchup, which means that Greg will play the winner of 4 versus 13, which is, who's that? Off the top of my head, is that Rosen and Ellie Petz? No, it's Carissa Yip versus Dina Polito. Carissa Yip is the 4 seed. So,
and fortunately for you, Robert, and for the audience, I cannot make it tomorrow, so you'll finally have a capable co-commentator.
By finally, you mean the same co-commentator I had the other day when you weren't around?
Right, exactly. And I'm just saying you'll have a brief moment to catch your breath and not have to deal with total incompetence.
I don't know. I'm so used to... Oh, no, it's a conversation for another time. Anyway, this is the final game of the opening round of the IM GM Speed Chess Championship. We've had a very fun time here. 2 great players, 2 great ambassadors for the game of chess. E1's hanging with check.
And E4 as well.
Yeah, so take on E1 and then take on E4. That looks pretty good. Come on, please. There it is. Okay. But 2 great ambassadors for the game of chess. Greg Shahade, he's very well known, the commissioner of the Pro Chess League. He runs the U.S. Chess School. Before the Pro Chess League, there was the U.S. Chess League. So, Greg, of course, is very well known. And IM Zatonskih, who's, how many U.S. Women's Championships has she won?
A lot. I lost count. Huge pedigree for Anna, and she's got a beautiful family, and we appreciate that she's finding time to, she's maintaining a high quality of play, and I remember her just crushing it in so many U.S. championships. And they're playing another game, but it should be aborted, I think.
I'm trying to figure out why they're playing. Maybe just to entertain everybody.
I think Greg wants one more attempt at that line.
I was about to say, I think they want the final say of if this line is acceptable for black or if Anna's just going to pounce.
Yeah, they're just running toward Bogo. I want the Bogo Indian. I need another game.
The match is over. Greg Shahade is our champion. We will take a short break, and when we return, we'll interview both players, hear their thoughts about what was a very intense match that got away from IM Zatonskih and the Bullets. So stay tuned, everybody. We will be right back. And we are joined by both players after a great match. Congratulations to Greg Shahade on a fine victory. I'm sorry the match did not go your way, but I want to start with you, Anna. First of all, the third game of the match where you had queen and knight versus queen and bishop, I've called that the game of the match because I thought your endgame technique there was extremely impressive. So what was it like for you going to these French variations game after game? Was that part of your the main part of your plan?
Yes, I think also I forgot some variations, and I definitely need to play more games in French defense because recently I was in Petrov defense mostly, like my husband. So I definitely need to practice and understand more ideas in French defense. And I think I got decent positions in French defense, right? Just later on, I just blunder it. And it's a lot of tense match, a lot of pressure, and and I think my face was not like so smiley like now during the games. So Robert is our coach from Olympic team, and he knows that usually I am very sad. And it doesn't matter if I am winning or losing match. I'm very concentrated on the game.
Yep.
Yes, and I'm very glad that this upcoming tournament, Nations, in May, we will play a long time control. 25 minutes, it's long.
Yes, especially compared to what you just played.
Yes, exactly. So I was so happy. We are not playing 1 minute.
Well, Greg, congratulations on the victory. And kind of a general question about the way the match went. So in the beginning, you were getting into some sort of long, drawn-out positional battles, and we felt like you made this conscious effort to mix things up, both in your opening choices, maybe playing a little faster here and there. Was that kind of a conscious decision to try to make things more tactical, or were you just kind of following every game at a time?
It's tough. She has an opening repertoire that I don't like. That French line, it's always been a problem for me because you can't. It's hard to make it very tactical.
Mm-hmm.
I thought early on, I was worried I was going to get crushed. It was down. I won the first game. The first game was good until I messed it up a little bit, and then I just lost 3 games in a row and terrible. It kind of she outclassed me technically in all those games, I felt like, and I was kind of scared that it was going to be a blowout. Yeah, I wanted to make things complicated. So I kept playing this line in the Nimza or the Bogo. I don't know if it's any good, but it felt like my positions were okay and they were interesting.
Yeah,
but it was hard what's up?
Sorry, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, it was hard to generate the kind of positions I feel most comfortable in, with a lot of tactics and stuff and weird positions.
Right.
So.
And Anna, I guess on your end, you guys repeated the openings pretty much every game until the bullet portion when Greg went B3. Did you feel like you were getting good positions out of the openings with both white and black, or is there something you should go?
I think it was white. I didn't really understand where to put my pieces, and I lost a couple games with a wrong plan, and Greg really find the way how to fight against this line. But I think by the end I got very decent positions, and with this idea B5, and I think I shouldn't play E4, and it took me a while to realize that it's better to keep my pawn on E2. So I think
I kept doing this terrible thing where I would go C6. I do it over and over.
Yeah, but what can you do? It's not easy. It's not easy to figure out what exactly to do in 3 minutes games. And sure. I was just more upset, blundering stuff, and especially losing this game when I was mating probably in a couple moves. It was just terrible.
The one with queen takes F1?
Yeah. I think it was my mistake was I didn't prepare some espresso shots before 1 minute part of yeah. This was definitely a huge mistake. Yeah. And Chess when we are playing Olympiad, I'm not drinking coffee before the game, and I'm asking to bring in 2 hours. Because especially when I'm losing concentration, this is the same story. Yeah.
You wanted to match the most intense point of the game.
Yeah.
Well, so I need to I think definitely chocolate bars. It's milk chocolate. It's not working. It should be dark chocolate.
Well, we've learned a lesson about what isn't working for you in terms of to keep your concentration ready. But Greg, let me ask you a question about the next match in this event, because you face the winner of Carissa Yip versus Dina Bolito. Which of those 2 opponents do you want to see? And I imagine your history playing Dina Bolito is much longer than it is against Carissa Yip.
It is, but I mean, both are great. I'll be excited to play either one of them. There's a lot of players in this tournament that, not my favorite players, let's just say. But Dean and
Am I
Chris,
your favorite player?
no, you're one of my favorites. Yeah.
After the match, definitely.
No, you're my favorite. Dean and Chris are great, but then you got John Bartholomew and Lawrence Trent, Levy Rosman, all these guys, playing the Scandi every game.
Who would do that? Yeah. I think we should kick that person out of this tournament.
I'm gonna do it at the end of the tournament, but she let me sack a pawn, so that was more fun. I studied this line before the thing, and I just couldn't remember it in the 1-minute games.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the next match will be really exciting. Whoever I play, Carissa's young, tactical, exciting player. Dean likes to play the Petrov every game.
I think you sounds like you'd rather play Carissa stylistically.
Yeah, but Dean would be interesting. It'd be like a throwback to, we tied for first in the high school championship in like 98 or something, or 96. So that would be like a fun throwback match.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And Anna, before we let you two both go, and thank you again, you wanted to wish somebody a happy birthday, right?
Yes. I want to say happy birthday to our very good friends, Gennady Sagalchik from New York, coach for chess mates on Long Island, and Coach Gennady, happy birthday from us.
Happy birthday to Gennady. That's Grandmaster
and
Gennady.
Grandmaster, we should add Grandmaster Gennady Sagalchik.
Grandmaster, yes, of course. Yeah.
He's not invited to this tournament, is what we're getting.
Yes,
at.
that's why he's Grandmaster. Yeah.
I think he was the first Grandmaster I ever played.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Did you win the game?
I was up a piece. He sacked a piece, and I was like, "What's happening?" I think I was doing okay, but I lost.
So you're saying happy birthday, Gennady.
Happy birthday, Gennady. That was my present.
Well, thank you so much, you two, for joining us, for playing. The fans were very excited by your chess. I think there was some great technical performance by you both. And Greg, ultimately, congratulations on the victory. Anna, thank you so much. Sorry it didn't go your way, but always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, guys. And congratulations, Greg. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Hey, can I give a quick shout out to that last match 2 days ago? It was like one of the best matches I ever saw. Christoph and Alina.
Yep.
That was incredible.
That draw she gave at the end when she could have just run the clock out?
Yeah.
I was thinking, oh my gosh, she did it. Now, if it ever came up, I felt like I would felt morally obliged to do it too.
So you're saying, Greg, she made you a better person?
Basically, I was like, wow, what sportsmanship? How is this even possible?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a great match.
Well, thank you to the both of you. An awesome match, and rest up. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Thank you. Congratulations, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to those players for joining us. We have the final match score in Greg Shahade's favor. It ended up looking a little more lopsided than it was, because before the bullet section took place, it was Greg Shahade by 2. It ends up being Greg Shahade by 5. And he's waiting the victor of Carissa Yip, which is a big test for him. It's a tactical affair, but a young, up-and-coming player versus Dean Ippolito, as he said, someone he faced and tied with in the 1998 high school championship.
Dean of chess. He is old, reliable. He is a tough nut to crack. That is going to be an interesting match.
He's sturdy, right? He is very sturdy with his Petrovs and his very solid D4 repertoire. And, well, let's look at the schedule, because there are still half the bracket, half the games of the first round to take place. And, we have this matchup between Carissa and Dean that we've talked about a bunch of times, but we still have as well tomorrow. We have Elizabeth Pett taking on Eric Rosen. That's going to be a very fun one. Then we have Kostya Kavutsky, Lawrence Trent as the first head of the doubleheader. The highlight of the opening round, of course, is Teddy Coleman taking on Danny Wrench. Everyone wants to see Danny play. And then last but not least, we have this much anticipated matchup between 16-year-old Carissa Yip and the Dean of American Chess, Dean Ippolito, who is very well known in the American circuit. So
indeed,
tons of fun matches ahead. We will be rating the Chess Brothers teams. And, hey, all the viewers can stay to beat Fun Master Mike. So Mike Klein, Fun Master Mike, taking on viewers and stuff. So enjoy more chess. We may be going, but the chess part does not stop.
Chess part never sleeps.
Any final thoughts about what we just saw or what's to come?
Well, every match that we've observed so far, I feel like it's had its own character. It's had its own narrative. That's what makes these matches so magical. The final score might be lopsided, but we saw some positional masterpieces by Anna. We saw some really good bunker chess by Greg, some resilience by Greg. Very, very interesting match. And I'm really enjoying all of these. These are honest fighting players, and they're putting their hearts out for each and every one of these matches.
You could tell, sorry to cut you off there, but you could tell the hard work that was put in based on the openings that were played and how they were just trying to duke it out for small advantages and the technical performance. I mean, game 3 was really a stellar one from IM Zatonskih. And as Greg himself said, he's like, I thought I was going to get rolled over after she won 3 games in a row and just outclassed him in those games. But Greg Shahade, all credit to him. He fought valiantly. He was really tactically aware. He was alert, and he deserved that match victory. So I think all credit to Greg, and thank you to Anna once more for putting up a tremendous fight. And I've been told that I was wrong. No chess bras going to Botez live. So expect Botez gambits, many queen sacrifices, sacrifices in quotes, and the chess party still does not continue, even if it's not the bras. So have a good one, everybody. Stay healthy, stay safe,
everybody.
Be well, and come back tomorrow for more I Am Not a GM Speed Chess Championship action.